Yes, y'all. I apologize for being late. I just had to join TikTok so that so that we can display one of these prompts tonight. I didn't want to join TikTok, but here we are. I want to thank everyone who participated in the show last week. You guys made last week's show a good one. Special thank you to those of you who caught the show after it posted to YouTube. Got a good number of people who watched the show, what they call it, replay gang. So thank you guys who are part of the replay gang. This week, we have one topic that we didn't get to last week. So what are we discussing? I'm back. Drop a 1 if you can hear my voice. StreamYard did some shenanigans just now. Told me I didn't have any internet access when clearly I'm plugged into the Ethernet. I don't know why it did that. So Trigger Happy 262 Plus in the chat says he can't hear anything. Now he says 1. Okay. So I can be heard now, but that was weird. I was on to kick me off, but I'm back. Like I saw the show said, I'm late because I had to sign up for TikTok. Didn't want to have to do that. Kind of tired of social media, but one of these prompts tonight wouldn't allow me to show the video if I didn't join TikTok. So thanks for that. I guess I'm now a member. If you guys are on TikTok, drop your links, your profiles, and I will add you guys. I imagine you could add people as friends. I'll add you guys as friends on TikTok. I've long been told that TikTok does have a lot of good Pan-African content, so I'll now see for myself. Joe is out there saying good evening. Good evening, Joe. Thank you for passing through. What are we discussing tonight? Like I said before I got kicked off, we got one topic from last week and 4 completely new ones. I want to thank everyone who's been posting topics on the Discord. Some of you, though, are still just posting a video with no prompt. So we don't know. I don't know what are we being asked to discuss necessarily. Also, you can post a video that's an hour or 2 hours long, but give me timestamps. What 10-minute interval of time do you want me to show on the show so that we can discuss it? All right. So just those couple things when you post your when you post your topics on there, give me a prompt that the panelists can speak to, and give me timestamps. If it's a long video, give me timestamps. I'll probably watch the video the entirety myself. Give me timestamps for what to show on air. With that said, our topics this week are: is there any indication of our African spiritual recovery while we see the whitening of that space? That's a very, very good topic in my mind. I'll be interested to hear what you guys in the chat and those who join us in the panel have to say about it. We're going to also talk about if Black people had a system of consequences. Very important conversation as well. We need to discuss identity crisis at its best. This one was supposed to happen last week. It says, could white passing be used as a strategy of espionage? warfare for black people. Talk about that. I'm going to talk about the fact that, you know what? A lot of music is just black music sung by white people. We're going to talk about those topics tonight. Shout out to Afro Native World. Afro Native World, I apologize for taking so long to respond to your DM on Discord. I responded today, so let me know. We'll talk behind the scenes, but please accept my apologies. The matron is out there as well, saying greetings, everyone. Provide Triggers is out there. She says she can hear me. She typed 1. Like I said, Joe said good evening. Trigger Happy 262 plus type 1, indicating that he can hear me. So, with that said, let's start the show officially. On the other side of the introduction, I'm going to drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as introduce any and all of my panelists. So please stay tuned. In the meantime, hit the like button, share the show to social media, and drop your comments in the chat. All right? Stay tuned. This thing is always...
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Make sure you also tuned in to Brother Bakari at the BBN Black Business Network. Make sure you tune in to Forecast Radio. Make sure you tune in to Consider Cheek, Realm in the Bush. Make sure you're tuned in to Kofi, the Black Critic. I like to emphasize this. The matron does her readings several times per week. That allows you guys to support several times per week. Give her your ear. Have a conversation with her. Donate to the Cash App as well. Make sure to support her. And support all the other shows on KWAZ Radio. With that said, see Jacadero out there in the chat saying, peace, everyone. Daily affirmations by Pauline has checked in saying good evening. I appreciate all of you for joining us. Right now, I have one panelist with me. It's all good. And I'll be Buana. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good, man. Koku, can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And I second your notion when people say, when you talk about matron and the fact that she reads. I usually listen to the playbacks now, but I'm gonna tell you, her readings are awesome. So while you're doing your work, or if you're on a long drive, just listen to one of Matron's playbacks. You could learn a whole lot about history and different things like that. And what I also have to say this, Jacadero, get your chapati on in backstage right now, because you're not a spectator, so you need to come do your job and contribute for the night.
Shout out to Jacadero and Chapati, man. Juan, I gotta talk to you about, if you know, I've been approached about getting some African-centered books for school children, and I'm thinking about 100. If you know how I could get that down there and distribute it from here, let me know, okay? But I'll hit you up behind the scene.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do they have to be hardcover? Because now it is more feasible in using the PDF forms and getting books via that, and maybe sending it to, because all the children, I don't know if they have phones in Africa like that in terms of getting the internet and being able to read. But I found that I have this thing called Kindle, and I am able to download a whole lot of PDF books, and I could take 100 books with me via PDF. So that could be an alternative rather than the hardcover. Just a consideration. Yeah.
We'll talk about it some. All right. But thanks for being here as usual, Buana. Jacadero responded from the chat. He said he put some laughing emojis and then said loud and clear. So we should be seeing Jacadero shortly. Until then, though, how about we do Shoot the Breeze topic number 1? If you guys want to join, anyone who can hear my voice, if you want to join the panel tonight, men, women, young adults, teenagers, you want to join and share your thoughts on these topics, by all means, click the link pinned to the top of the chat, and you too can have your thoughts heard here on Shoot the Breeze. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, is there any indication of our African spiritual recovery while we see the whitening of that space? Of course, this takes us to a link that's going to take us to TikTok. Make sure you guys could see what I'm seeing. Yeah, you guys should be able to see what I'm seeing. And again, if you guys are on TikTok, drop your handles or look me up, Bitter Medicine Podcast on there, and let's be friends, I guess. But again, should it be thought number 1, is there any indication of our African spiritual recovery while we see the whitening of that space? Let's watch this video, and then there's 2 more attachments with this as well. I'm pretty certain I saw the center from the Los Angeles Clippers, Zubac. I'm pretty sure I saw him out there in that celebration. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good to have all those white folks in that space. That's not good. The only comfort I kind of take is that, remember when Dr. John Henry Clark said, slave and the slave master can't pray to the same God because they have two different asks of that God? The only thing I can say is I would hope and I would expect that the Orishas ain't responding to them white folks out there making noise at all, and just responding to our folks doing the practice. But it's still not a good look. That's not a good look for our children to go and see that they don't have exclusivity, even in their own spiritual practices. That's kind of sad. In the chat, Trigabi262 Plus says, same issue last week. Traditionalists cannot lament about how we are nice to everyone and everyone has spirit. Kemet already eliminates that myth. We are accepting of others because we have no power. If people have done you dirty for decades and decades, and you allow them in your cultural spaces, you're not virtuous, you're weak. No other way of beating this claim. Trigger says, apparently this is in Brazil, and Argentinians also practice Ifa. Yeah, a lot of them, okay. Still a little disheartening. Now, I guess one of the questions we could try to tackle as well is the presence of white folks in these spiritual gatherings, are they forcing themselves into that, or are we inviting them in? Before we get to that topic and that discussion, let me welcome in our brother, Jacadero, to the stage. Jacadero, how are you this week?
I'm blessed to be here. Thank you for having me.
Am I smacking on your body in the background there too? Thank you for being here, brother. Yeah, man. Licking his fingers and all kind of shit. Chapati. Thanks for being here as always, though. Man, let me start with Buana on this one. Buana, is there any indication that our African spiritual recovery, while we see the whitening of that space? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me say this. It's interesting. I look at myself more like an African pragmatist, maybe an agnostic, and I get asked a lot of spirituality questions, and then Trigger Happy is have a go at me in the chat. But let me take a crack at it. What I would say is there's definitely a curiosity within young black culture worldwide. There are questions being asked from the traditional religions that many of us have been brought up in. And I see there is a moving away from the traditional religions that we was brought up in, whether it's Islam or Christianity. And there's a questioning in terms of going back to the origin. What did our ancestors practice? There's a curiosity there. And among our ranks is very slow. But I see that that is happening slowly, but it's happening in the Western world. I can't speak for the continental Africans, but I definitely see there is a movement of a lot of people moving away from the traditional religions that they've been brought up into. In terms of the whitening, there has always been a curiosity, not only a curiosity, but a interest in things of power when it comes to the Europeans. There's always been this interest of power, and though they deny the efficacy of African spirituality, they have experienced is power, or the powerful nature of it, where it's in being among us in the plantation, and our medicine women or old men giving them medicines to cure them. That's an unthought talked about thing. You see a lot of Europeans going to Haiti and trying to understand the culture of voodoo because they see power in that, or some kind of efficacy in that. So it has always been an interest, big interest in African spirituality. You see many people even going to continental Africa, white European people, trying to understand the culture of the spiritual practices of of the Babalaos in Africa and the different spiritual men in Africa. They don't talk about it much, and Western media doesn't necessarily talk about it much. But there's a huge interest. It always has been there in terms of African spirituality and practice. There is a great interest in it, great interest. It's just that we have not necessarily been aware of it. So I don't know if there's been a widening of that space. I think that a lot of the Babalaos, because of maybe economic desperation, they tend to liberalize the secrets that many of our spiritual practitioners would have kept to themselves, and maybe made it liberal because of the money interest that you could pay out in learning certain secrets. Now, whether you consider that to be treachery or betrayal, that's a matter for the practitioners, because they would say, well, the Orishas don't see color. They're interested in the spiritual element of things. They don't see color. It's just, the souls, the gods are just interested in the spirit, and that's what they feed on. And so that don't necessarily have to do with color. But I would say the Orishas are confused. The Orishas are confused because all these things come from ancestry and ancestral connection. So when they see Margaret, or when they see Karen trying to open the door to the spiritual realm, they say, "Well, who are you? Who are you?" I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm looking for Jermaine. I'm looking for Jared, and I'm seeing Karen trying to open the doors and channels to the greater mysteries of the world, and I'm confused because you don't seem to have like a ancestral connection to me. So that's where I am with this particular thing. That's what I have to really to contribute on this topic. I don't know. Well, I'll just leave it to Jacadero and any other spiritualists who may have more information, way much more than I would on this particular topic.
But Bonner, before you go, not Trigger, Afro Native World brought this up in the chat. He said this needs expansion because the cultural context of Latin America offers no exclusivity because of the embedded culture of the. I always have a problem pronouncing this word, but I know it's based on mestizo. So, Bonner, how would you respond to that?
What happened in Latin America is unique, okay? Because in Latin America and places like Brazil, because the state have this thing of, and I ain't gonna say it's completely like this, but we are a melting pot. They talk about these kinds of things too. So sometimes you have cross pollination of culture, but I see the most dominant feature in many of these Spanish speaking countries is African culture and African spirituality. You would see a European looking person, even though he may have a black grandfather or black grandmother, something like that. You would see them having orishas in their homes. Same thing in Cuba as well, by the way. You would see the same kinds of things. Someone who looks phenotypically like a like a white Cuban person. Many of these people have African gods in their homes. South Florida is the same thing as well, because of the politics of the country itself, and because they try to go the way of multiculturalism. There's a blending of cultures, but the crazy thing is, what becomes more dominant or most dominant, besides the Catholicism, is the African spirituality that remains like a presence there. They don't talk about it much, but is a heavy presence, in particular in places like Brazil, because so much Africans went there and pushed their culture inside of Latin America and Cuba and many Latin American countries. So I understand that why there's no exclusivity, there's no separation as it is in places like the United States. And even in the United States, you see cross pollination too. You can't get away from it. They can't get away from it, even if they try. Because if you go to New Orleans, you will see a lot of that as well. If you go to certain places in the South, you will see a lot of that as well. You can't get away from that African experience, even with the power of the state trying to impose separate values, and we distinct and we delineate, making demarcations between peoples and cultures. They're gonna still be something to filter over the cross pollination, as I said it before. But that's what I think is happening in Latin America.
I appreciate that, Buana. Afro Native World, post your thoughts on what Buana said just now. With that said, Jacadero, what are your thoughts
When you
about
said,
the lightening of the spiritual space? I'm sorry, go ahead.
when you said the reference to Zubak, I don't think people caught it. I was dying, man. So that was pretty funny there. It wasn't until it was brought in the chat that this.
You got to be a basketball.
100%. So I appreciate it. I see you're on top of your game. Until the chat had revealed that this is somewhere in South America, I was, because I had seen it on social media somewhere, and it did something to my spirit. No pun intended, but it did something, because I was like, what is going on? Like, wait, whoa, what's this? But if it's in South America, it makes sense. One of the things that I come across is that it seems like, I could be wrong, but it seems like, because I only grew up in the Midwest, so I don't know about the South, especially the Carolinas where the Gullah Geechee are, or the Louisiana where, a form or a variation of voodoo is, or voodoo itself. But at least in the Midwest, and maybe even the West Coast, the African spiritual systems that came with the Africans that were brought to North America aren't as carried as heavy into the culture, versus in the Caribbean and South America, it's alive. It's literally alive. There was I don't watch Kai Cenat, but I had caught a clip of one of his live mafia streams where he was in Brazil and he was attempting to buy, he was just strolling through a favela, and he was attempting to get directions, basically just get the crowd and the people watching entertained. And there was a lady that was selling whatever she was selling, just a street vendor. And one of the glaring things that was apparent that he didn't notice was that she had, maybe it was Ifa, but she had some altar set up, and there was some parts of her vending that was selling, I don't know what term I would call it, but memorabilia. And people in the chat were letting Kai Cenat know that, hey, this is a lady that she's trying to sell you black magic memorabilia. But nonetheless, I say that to say it's alive in the culture, versus in North America, again, unless you're in the South, like the Carolinas or Louisiana, here in the Midwest, it's not alive. It's not alive. So it makes sense that it's in South America. The question was, let me see this question again. Is there any indication of our African spiritual recovery while we see the whitening of that space? Do I see that there's going to be a whitening of the space? I don't think so. I don't believe so. I'm sure you're going to see small pockets of it, but I don't think that there's going to be a whitening of the space. One, just because, like Juana had said, there's a lot of youth out there that are sick and tired of the lies. There ain't no Santa Claus. There ain't no white man that's going to come and deliver you gifts. You can fast for Ramadan, but you can also fast any other time during the year, and you're still going to get the same nutritional benefits. I don't know any black people that practice Judaism, but if you do, what the hell are you doing? This also reminds me of whenever Americans, especially white Americans, they go to Bali or India, and then they become Buddhist or Hindu practitioners. Like, do they have those same questions? I don't think so. Now, one can say like, well, majority of Indians and maybe those in Bali and other parts of Southeast Asia, they don't practice Christianity or Islam. Sure, they might not, but I don't think that they're worried. I don't think that we need to be as worried. If you want extra assurance on not being worried, get in those leadership positions. If you know a Babalawo, or if you are a Babalawo and the same female counterpart, set up these systems. Again, like, when's the last time that you had heard of whether Ifa, Yoruba, Vodum, Dinka, Nuer, Acholi, whatever spiritual system that it is, whenever you ever heard of that practice building a hospital, that practice building a school? There's a lot of debate online about, well, it's not a lot, but in the fringe areas of social media where Tariq Nasheed hangs out, it's like, well, why don't you guys go back to your guys' country as Africans if it's so good, if you guys continue to put flags in your bio? That's fine. But some of these individuals are not coming here because of immigration. Some of these individuals are coming here, like my stepfather, as a South Sudanese refugee. And when you look at the refugee camps in East Africa, you'll notice a common theme. That common theme is the Red Cross, the cross signifying that this is backed by a Christian organization. When was the last time that you've heard of a refugee camp resettlement program spearheaded by Babalaos from Ifa or practitioners from Voodoo? It's these type of grassroots things that you can create a system to even continue the assurance that we should have nothing to worry about. Am I worried about it? I don't believe so. No, I'm not. Again, it's South America. It makes sense. If it is Argentina, it would make a lot of sense that this would be Argentina. But if this was somewhere like in Benin or Togo, and it's really funny. One last thing. Search for Uhuru. He's a guy that goes to Africa a lot. And he had said that on one of his travels, he had said that it's funny, anytime that I go to the Voodoo festival, oftentimes the plane, usually his connecting flight is in Europe. He says that oftentimes his plane from the last stop in Europe to Benin is often full of white Europeans. Full. But I maybe this is a conversation about economics. Like, now, sure, we can say, oh, well, Black people are giving all this money to the church, but also it's like, well, are they aware, or have they been programmed to dismiss our ancient practices? I don't know. Am I worried though? No, I'm not worried.
I want to add something to this. This goes back to the old saying we used to say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And if our people want to throw away something that someone else appreciates and pays a lot of money to go even see and participate in, it is very strange that we would get upset and mad about it. Because we was talking about, I think, the blues the other day. I was talking to Anthony about the blues. And at the blues festival, so many Europeans love the blues, patronize it, spend millions of dollars to go to the different festivals and whatnot. But it seems that the audience are either older Black people or a bunch of European people. If these people appreciate what you're throwing away, why are you getting mad at them? Why are you getting mad at them? If you want to go to all the TD Jakes conferences in the world and buy all the Kenneth Copeland books and go to Eddie Long and the new pastor, this new mega pastors, well, these people going into your countries and appreciating your culture, spending money with the Babalaos, giving them food, offering all these other things. Why are you getting mad? They just picking up what you decide to throw away. I don't know.
Buana, like that's really interesting that you bring that up. Me and one of my guys, we often talk about legacy acts in music and how, I live in Omaha, and the biggest venue in Omaha is the CHI Center. Their rock and roll, I guess, yeah, just mainly like rock legacy acts, like they call it the hair bands of like the 80s. So AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, they'll fill out the CHI Center. White people will fill those out. Black artists that are legacy acts have a hard time selling tickets. Very, very difficult time. So is it a question of like, do we, are we quick as Black people to just say, well, that's the old thing. You know, why are you paying attention to the old thing? Why are you holding on? I know a DJ, and he says that oftentimes he'll spin a record from the 2010s. And if he goes and spins maybe 4 back-to-back 2010 records, somebody will come to the DJ booth and say, why are you playing that old shit? Why can't you play some of the new stuff? So is it like, one, are we just as Black people like really quick to just dismiss the old and say out with the old, in with the new? Is that it?
Some of us, because now we're talking about cultures now. I think that I have seen that phenomenon in the in North America and the Western world. But if you go to places like Jamaica, I'm gonna tell you something. The old artists sometimes get more love than the newer artists.
Facts.
You could put a person.
Facts.
You could put a person. Yeah, you could put a person like Buju Banton. He's a '90s artist, and he's still filling up shows. You know, you could put a person like Barris Harmon. The people love to hear that, and then when they hear this new crap, you're just emulating other people's culture. We don't throw. The Caribbean doesn't seem to throw away their artists just because they get older, as opposed to other cultures. Because I don't think that we have a youthful culture, but I think that there is still the culture where the music should supersede all. So if the music is good, and if the music is pervasive, we're gonna say people still listen to Bob Marley. Bob Marley sing a song from 50 years ago, and if you put on a Bob Marley song, people will love to hear Bob Marley and many other artists like him. So I think that we are not as quick to throw away foundational artists or older artists or something we are not quick to throw away something that's new for something that's old. We are not that quick. I would say that.
Yeah, Buana, that's really interesting that you said that about Caribbean artists, because when I was back home in Kenya, Morgan Heritage headlined a festival, and they were by far the largest sought out act during that festival. I attended that festival, and it was insane how much us Kenyans appreciate roots reggae, especially bands like Morgan Heritage. And you mentioned Barris Hammond. And for those that ever want to go to Kenya, please, I encourage you to go. I encourage any African Americans, African Caribbeans, anybody all over, Afro-Brazilians, please go to Kenya, move to Kenya if you want. One of the things that you'll pick up is that the average Kenyan club that is among the best clubs, the last half hour of the night is dedicated to roots reggae. So I actually agree with you on that. I've seen that firsthand, Buana. Big shout out. Shout out to the Caribbean.
Yeah, our old guys perform until they can't perform no more. Sparrow, the mighty Sparrow, people still give him his honor, even though he can't move around anymore. People still give him his honor on his birthdays and stuff like that. Yeah, we don't just throw the older folks away. People still listening to Jacob Miller. You talking about Bob Marley. Jacob Miller ain't make a song since about 78. Right, so
Coco, what Ronnie Butler was singing from his wheelchair.
A Bahamian artist named Ronnie Butler. He was, in fact, I want to say he performed like the week before he died or something too. As a matter of fact, like he was performing in a wheelchair, holding the mic. So we don't just give them up like that. I want to point y'all's attention to the screen in a second, but first, Trigger Happy says, when you don't have institutions and don't keep and maintain the past, the ancestors, then you will have the phenomenon of a youth culture dominating. Anthony McPhail is out there in the chat saying peace to me and the panel. Thank you, Anthony. Hope all is well. So there was a response to this video. and I wanted to share. It was one of our own people here. I'll read and you guys can figure it out. It says, for anyone reading this, there'll be gullible black people who will say that because these are descendants, they should be accepted and respected. But this is the problem with black people. Black people have no survival thrust at this current moment. They don't see the chess moves white people commit. People often argue that white people want to mix out because they want their kids to be melanated. But if their kids remain melanated, they don't exist. I would argue that white people want a world in which they can still be white and exist to withstand the sun enough. So like an octoroon or quadroon situation. So they essentially want the genetic codes and culture of black people just enough to sustain themselves. And this video is a great example. Argentina got rid of most of its black peoples, and guess what is one of their storied cultural products? Tango, made by black people. CR7 is an all-time footballer, and he is an octoroon. I'm of the firm belief that he wouldn't have his abilities if it were not for his ancestry from Cape Verde. Gullible black people will accept them, not realizing that constantly accepting them is leaving a precedent of whitening while you don't exist. There are constant historical examples of white people using mixing as a means of getting rid of a population. They do it enough so that they can tan in the sun, have some curly hair while practicing the African culture. This has a second prompt. Share this with you. Or they can still be white and exist to withstand the sun enough. So like, okay, I guess I read this before. Hold on, let me see if there's any new. Ultimately, African spirituality will not survive if it doesn't have strong political and militaristic consciousness too. And this consciousness existed before if you study ancient African history. So it's no excuse for Yoruba people or any other black people to accept this if they are aware enough. Anyone who isn't simply does not have the will to want to survive. The will to want to survive. I guess you guys might be able to put together who would have written that, who's around here. But what are you guys' thoughts before we move on to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2? What are you guys' thoughts on this poster who posted this comment to this video? Anyone could go.
Go ahead, Jacado. Go ahead, brother.
I had no idea that that Cristiano Ronaldo, I think that's who he's mentioning, or this person is mentioning by CR7. If that is Cristiano Ronaldo, I had heard rumors that one of his great grandparents was black, but I just thought that was because when he played for Man U, there was a lot of black Brits that loved Cristiano. So if that is true, that's very interesting. It shows it should showcase the evidence of like what can really happen, like how, Diana Ross on social media, for those that don't know, like she often gets a lot of jokes made because of that one Christmas photo, and she's probably the only black person in the photo. Like everybody else looks like they're adopted. So if that is true about Cristiano Ronaldo being an octoroon, that's incredible. How if it is a great grandparent or even just a grandparent, how quickly that's it. That's it. As far as institutions, there was a mentioning of like a strong political militaristic consciousness. These things are nice to say. I want to say this again. These things are awesome to say. But what are some practical things? Anybody can be a. When I say anybody, again, take it with a grain of rice. But anybody can be a doctor, so you can start a practice. Can you be? And shout out to Anthony, by the way. Can you be a practitioner of an African spiritual system and be a doctor? Absolutely. So then you can start your own practice, and then now we have a voodoo backed, a Ifa backed, a Choli backed, a Luo backed, a Dinka backed practice. Same thing with the school. Anybody can be a teacher if you're just a practitioner of those spiritual systems. You can start and a school doesn't have to be. I know this guy's controversial now, but Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey School. Let's not get into that slippery slope, huh? But you don't have to be a quote unquote or an alleged grifter. You can just be anybody and become a teacher, get a degree, and then just start the school out of like your house, or just pick up a storefront. I say pick up, like somebody can get a bank loan. But if you have the means, you can do these things. And then now we have a practitioner of those that's backing an educational system. And then it goes on from there. These things are nice to say, but what are some practical things? People want instruction on something that they can do tomorrow, that they can get started right away. And those things that I had talked about, it's awesome. Only last week he said something about like the poor white boy will go to Southeast Asia and become a Buddhist. But when it comes time for running for political office in the United States, they drop that shit immediately. Like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And that's exactly right. Like, so we have to say to ourselves, like in the Caribbean and Africa, and maybe even in America, you never know, that like, do we have a political candidate that is from our communities of these African spiritual systems? Can we put the money and resource behind that person, man or woman? Go ahead, one.
Yeah, my belief is when I read this, it seems like the person who wrote this, when they talk about the intention of what the white man or European man wants to do in terms of the whitening process, how I extrapolate this is there is no agency with the black person, and what his intention is. Where there's a willing buyer, there must be a willing seller, or where there's a willing seller, there must be a willing buyer. If a person have an intention to create a whitening process, or trying to use my genes, genetic genes, right, to make his situation more advantageous to him, I would have to participate in that process, unless via means of rape, or you trying to impose yourself. We ain't living in that century today. But whether you trying to force me to give you my genes through grape, I won't, even if that's your intention, I won't participate in that unless I am willing to do that. So you have to get me to exercise my own personal agency. I was watching something earlier today with Serena Williams. Now, Serena Williams, she looks like a European person. I mean, no, she looks like a person who was trying to ascend to Europeanization or whiteness. She is what I call a willing person in her own personal agency, because I think that she's more wealthy than her husband. I'm not sure. But she wants to create that kind of environment for herself. Now, I don't know what went into her mental process in trying to get there, but she is trying to embrace the process of whitening. And it'll be we'll see what the result of that is, or consequences of that is in 30 years. But there are many people who are not trying to buy into the whole whitening process. Black people have their own agency and they must be able to exercise that. I want to see my great grandchildren to look like me. I want to see that there are many other brothers who feel the same way. So they will date, marry, and have children with other black women. So whether that is the scheme of the white supremacists to have this idea of creating this class of people, there must be agency exercise or willing participant to embrace that idea in moving forward and trying to create that experiment. And unless that is there via grape, it's not gonna happen. I don't see that happening. Not now. Maybe back, a few years ago, I think that the DR, I think that their president had a whitening process. He did actually have that. That's why Dominicans say me no black and stuff like that. That's why they have that idea, because they had a whole structure behind it. But they was using the state and force to really remove that black culture or black experience from that particular country. Argentina did the same thing as well. But I don't necessarily believe that we are in that scenario right now. And if we are, I would say that there must be agency for black people too. We have our own intention. So what do the black people say when the white person, the European person say, well, I want to create a whitening process and I want to use your genetics to buttress myself into the future where I could do certain things I wouldn't do because of the sun is not kind to me. So we could just stand there and just not say nothing, just have children, and we're gonna just have children with Karen and Brad. We're not. I don't think so. I don't think so. So I I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with some of these comments, because I think that there should be agency involved with the black person as well, and that's not necessarily discussed here. It can't just be one person with the intention to do something and the other person just sitting back and allowing it to happen. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.
Trigger Happy in the chat asked the question: give me an example of any sort of agency black people have when black people actions at the moment on an assimilationist level do not do things for their own interests. Goes on to say, there is nothing I see from black people that can assure that black people want to protect themselves so they can easily accept agendas without realizing it. What would you say to that?
An example of that is Haiti. An easy example of that is Haiti. And another example of that is all the independence movements that happen all throughout Africa. They say they want a right to self-determination. Whether the government in European or French or Portuguese or Spanish people didn't want it to happen, we want the right to self-rule and self-governance. This is the agency that I believe is to be practiced. So you saying, oh, I want to go out on my own. I want to go out on my own and I want to do things for myself, whether you like it or not. And we are willing to go to the bush like the South Africans. We are willing to go to the bush and fight you. You say Haiti's in the past, but what about Burkina Faso? Ain't we talking about that every other week? What about the AES countries? All these countries are trying to fight for their own right to self-determination. So this is black men standing up and trying to exercise their own their own agency in their own right. And there are many European countries who don't want that. In fact, they just finished sending spies to Burkina Faso, and they have to beat up the French spy because he said he coming there as a technical expert. These are examples of black people trying to stand up and fight for their own level of agency and prepared to die for it. So I'll leave it.
All right. Trigger says Haiti is in the past. You don't understand the question. He says the point is you can't talk about agency when black people don't control the avenues necessary for the agency. So again, you don't understand the question. He says Africa is the only hope, though. See, that's the thing. I think we got to decide. Do we not have the agency to create, the changes, at least some of the changes that we want? Or are we just boxed in, landlocked, encircled by, the white power structure? Which is it? Gentlemen, you guys tell me. Which is it, Jacadero?
Yeah.
Juana?
Yeah. So my two biggest evidences of Africans being able to control and are actively doing everything that they can to keep that control of the narrative of their own destiny is, the anti-finance bill of Kenya, 2024. Those guys stormed Parliament. I want Trigger Happy to hear this. These Gen Z stormed Parliament. Parliament. That's the first time in our country's history that we've ever had something like that. And then they set it ablaze to say to William Ruto, you ain't going to continue to tax us and increase the tax and increase the salaries of these MPs. That's one. Here's a more recent one. Last week, it was reported among three different several news outlets, one of them being the AP Associated Press, that South Sudan and Israel were in negotiation talks on resettling Palestinian, specifically from Gaza, residents from Gaza, into South Sudan, into an area. I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with South Sudan, but there was such a social media uproar that within 3 days, South Sudan government officials were asked again, hey, is this going to happen? Are you guys in talks with Netanyahu and the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Israel into resettling residents from Gaza into South Sudan? And they said, no, nothing like that is going to happen. This is a country that, has had record human rights abuses. So you would think like they don't care about what citizens have to say, especially the diaspora. But within 3 days, they changed their whole voice that, hey, we're actually looking at talking with Israel to, no, we are not in communications with Israel about resettling anybody, let alone into our own country and giving them permanent or immediate citizenship. Those are the two examples of East Africa that I have.
I would only say this to my brother, Trigger Happy. I heard Dr. Rashido Nanoko, he made a statement. He said, with the true believers of something, right? If you're a true believer in something, and we're talking about agency right now, if you're a true believer in something, no proof is necessary. And if you're a true believer in something that's not real, no proof is enough. So no matter, so if you don't believe in agency or black agency, it's not I could give you proof of black people practicing agency until the chickens come home, but you will never believe me because you don't believe in agency. I do. I believe black men have a right to be self-determining, and black men have a right to control their own lives. I don't need the proof for that. I'm a living proof for that. But I hope that one day you come to the realization that I have come to. And no man, other man control my destiny but me. And I believe that. I really believe that. Not that for you that may be a delusional thought, but I don't believe it to be so for me. That's all I would say.
I want to rule my destiny. Trigger said one misinterpreting, but I'm saying I don't understand the whole point. Provide triggers for evolution says, have a thought which may be way off base. Can there be agency where we do not have control, the means of production in all important spheres of life? So before we move on, we'll just tackle this one briefly because I like this question Provide Triggers is asking. She's asking, can there be agency, like Juan was talking about, where we do not have the control of the means of production in all important spheres of life? That's kind of like that Neely Fuller, I forgot what he called it again, in all aspects of human activity type thing. We don't have control. So can we have agency? Gentlemen.
Well, I would say this. And I am glad that my grandfather was from Andres. Mine Andres. And my Andres, my grandfather had a little small farm. And on that little small farm, he had his little rock oven where he used to cook his food. He had his hogs. He had his chickens in the yard. He built his home, whether it's a small one or whatever. He had his own outhouse. He had his access to the sea. He had his own water supply. Now, I didn't understand the reality of that until I am a man now. Okay? So all the means of him providing sustenance for his family to grow three children, he had the ability to do in the situation he was in. In a city situation, the scenario is different. Things are more provided for you. You don't have to cut the chicken head off. You could go to the grocery store and buy it from them. Yeah, the means of you to getting your product for you to exist and to live is provided for you via the government. So I have had the experience of lack of government intervention and the experience of if the government is there providing all these little small private enterprises to make your life a little bit better, well, which we perceive as a little bit better. These are two different things that are currently running through my head. Whether one is better or the other, that's for the individual to decide. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, I think that all aspects of human activity as provide triggers is suggesting. I think that we have to eventually get to that point. I don't think that we're there yet, but I think that if we have it in our minds to do it, little by little we'll get there. Little by because you have to understand the situation many of us are currently in. So there must be an interest first to do that, to break away from, to become independent, to do all those things that you're talking about. And little by little you will gain the ability to do all them things you're describing. But currently, right now, I don't think that that exists. But I think the will have to be there first. The interest in doing something like that have to be there first, rather than being so heavily reliant on others to provide the simple things in nature: food, clothes, and shelter. You understand? But I'll leave it there for Jacadero to go.
I appreciate you leaving it for me, but I don't know how to answer this question, so I'm not gonna act like I do. But everything that you said, Buana, it sounds good. Sorry, man.
Let's go to shoot the topic number 2 for time's sake. Good discussion, but very good discussion. But let's go to shoot the topic number 2. Shoot the topic number 2 says, if black people had a system of consequences, this woman would not be allowed to come to the family reunion. Why are we afraid of this aspect of power? This is referring to a tweet. Let me share that with you guys. Man, drop an emoji for me if you're listening to the show, you like what you've heard so far tonight. Drop an emoji that will let the panelists know if they're doing a good job or not, man. Let's see what you guys can come up with creatively. Drop an emoji. Let us know how you feel about the discussion so far tonight. So should we start with number 2 takes us to Twitter. Here's the post from Jelon. It says her husband will be owning those 48 acres in 3 years. So it's an image that says 100%. Don't forget an entire bridal party group pic. So this is the bridal party. I guess that's a black woman. I guess that's a black woman, and that's a black woman. Let's see if there's more to it. So this video is about the family that bought. You know what? I'll just play this video as well, just so you know.
Saturday is the picnic. Everyone should experience a family reunion in the Mississippi Delta at least once. So I'm taking you to mine. Welcome to the Meeks family reunion. Every 2 years, over 500 of us gather to celebrate our legacy, heritage, and ancestors. Friday night is our banquet, Saturday is the picnic, and Sunday is our business meeting and breakfast. This year, we're back where it all began, on 48 acres that's been in my family for over 5 generations. This house belonged to my great-grandfather, Abner Meeks, who lived to be 107, and his wife, Medora, and together they had 14 children. And if you look at our family tree, there are 1,828 descendants from those 14 children. Family celebrations have been held on this land for almost 100 years, but the first organized Meeks family reunion happened in 1983. Generations of Black Americana live in these moments, where a great-grandma's cornbread recipe can meet the hands of some of the youngest members of our family for the first time, and the past and future hold hands beneath the Delta sun. It is because of this land that I gravitate towards certain foods, hosting styles, and ultimately the content that I share with you all. Because in every line dance, every pair of cowgirl boots, every big pickup truck, fish fry, and slice of caramel cake, and every gallop of Cousin Nick's horse Stack, yes, his name is actually Stack, there's a deeper understanding of my identity and proof that love can be passed down from one generation to the next. I feel so proud to know that my daughter is a new little leaf on a family tree that doesn't just remember our lineage, but protects it, preserves it, and pours into it.
Yeah, so if I'm piecing the story together, you just saw the story.
Everyone should experience
of this woman having a Black American family reunion in the Mississippi Delta. 48 acres has been in the family for 5 generations, and then this is a picture of her bridal party group pic. And the person who posted it, who looks white by the way, says her husband will be owning those 48 acres 3 years. Let me just make sure there's nothing else really else to put up. So yeah, so Shooter Breeze Talk number 2 says if Black people had a system of consequences, this woman would not be allowed to come to the family reunion. Why are we afraid of this aspect of power? Before we have the discussion, though, we got some new panelists joining us tonight. We got our brother Anthony McPhail. Anthony, how are you this week?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing, Coco? What's going on?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, man, and peace to all the brothers, man, on the panel, man, and peace to the brothers and sisters in the chat. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Anthony, I hope I say nothing yet to get right out of the book of life.
Hey, man, I was, okay. Now, I'm assuming, I can't see the picture that good, man. You know, it's, but I'm guessing that the man is a white man, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm starting to see it a little bit now. It's kind of a little blurred. It might be my phone, man. I cracked my phone. But yeah, man. See, this is the funny thing about Black people, man. About African people everywhere, really. But specifically, I'm gonna just talk about the Africans, our people here in North America, man. We got this thing. You know how it's a disease that we have, man, in the mind, man, a mental disease that we have of being close to whiteness. You know what I'm saying? And I've even though I haven't seen it in my family, you know, as far as like interracial marriages and stuff like that. But I mean, I've seen it with friends and things, like friends and people that I know, and we got this thing about love is love. No, man, love ain't love, man. And then I know some people go jump on it and say, well, man, you know, I mean, how can you tell somebody who they could marry, you know? But I mean, who you marry, that's a political statement, man. You know, it's a statement about your mind, about your mindset, about your consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Like, I agree with the brother 100%. What it said, in a few years, he gonna own that. All that land and everything, that's gonna be his eventually. You know what I'm saying? Especially if he got that kind of mindset. Because you know, man, white folks will marry you, if you got land, you got resources, you got money, whatever. They'll marry into your family just to get that. You know what I'm saying? It's like you know, they mastered infiltration. You know what I'm saying? I equate it with like the Arabs in East Africa. You know what I'm saying? Now they started off, they come over, they trade with the Africans on the coast, like in Kenya, in Somalia, in the whole East Africa area. You know what I'm saying? They'll trade with them, do a little trade with them. Hey man, we'll open up a trade between us. Next thing you know, they done establish a settlement. Next thing you know, they start marrying African women. Next thing you know, you got a whole culture, of people who are mixed Arab and mixed African. You know what I'm saying? And the Africans tend to follow Islam, to follow Arabic culture and everything. And then the next thing you know, those same group of people, you have a Tipu Till, you know what I'm saying, who's importing Africans and shipping them off to Asia. You know what I'm saying? And profiting off of the slavery of African people. You know what I'm saying? It's an infiltration thing. So they started off just marrying some African women. Next thing you know, you got a whole group of these mixed race people. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with us. Next thing you're going to look up now, like in the NBA, where you usually have a whole lot of dark-skinned brothers, now you got a whole bunch of light-skinned brothers. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, you're going to have a whole bunch of white people, white guys in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be the took over that as far as from the athletic point of view. And I like sports. That stuff is like a microcosm of the society. Next thing you know, you're gonna look up and what is black is your Klay Thompson. You know what I'm saying? What's black is your these people who you don't even recognize as black no more. You know what I'm saying? And one day you're gonna look up and you're gonna be like, where all the black people at? And it started with stuff like this right here. Bringing your white boyfriend to the cookout. You know what I'm saying? Marrying your white boyfriend. Marrying your white girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, you can wonder where we at, man. You like Dr. Clark said, I could imagine Africa without Africans. You know what? I could imagine African people in America not even looking like African people no more. And that's how it started. And people think, well, oh man, what you talking about? No, it started like that. That's how it started. That's how you end up with no black people in Argentina. When at one time it was a whole lot of black people in Argentina. You know what I'm saying? But over a period of time, a racial mix, a mixing races, and even other kind of elements, you had what you had now. You had like a whitenization. You know what I'm saying? The program that they had all over the Americas one day. And with our mindset of love is love, love is love go get you disappeared one day. You're gonna look around and what's black? And so man, I mean, we got, like I said, man, it's a political thing, definitely. This ain't no such thing as love is love. This is a people thing, man. No, man, it's political. You got to decide whether you want to see future black people in the future. You know what I'm saying? And the only way you're going to see that is with a black man and a black woman marrying each other and having black children, and us building towards, liberating ourselves, man, and looking out for our future. But it starts with small stuff like this here. People think, oh, that's just, no, man, no, that's everything you do is political, man. And especially when it comes to who you as a black man or a black woman marry, man. I'll leave it right there.
Appreciate that, Anthony. In the chat, Trigger Happy 262 Plus mentions, now going back to the agency tip, when you don't have a system of consequences and socialization, and other people socialize you, you are at the whim of other people and thus marry white. Trigger earlier said that this tweet made him look into the movie, and Black Steel responded in the chat. He said, Killers of the Flower Moon. Trigger said he thought it was an excellent movie. So, joining us on the panel tonight is Black Steel. Black Steel, how are you this week?
Everything is everything, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm hanging in there. Thanks for coming through.
So I saw this video as well. Um, so I referenced the movie, the Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, because in the movie, these Native Americans called the Osage people, they had actually found one of the largest oil wells in the country. And these people had suddenly come into wealth. And then what was happening is that you had white men marrying these Native American women, and these women dying of mysterious circumstances. There's literally a scene in the beginning of the movie where this white man had just married this Native American woman, had a baby with her, and as she's outside, she puts the baby in the carriage. He turns around and just shoots her, right? Then wipes off the gun and claims it's a suicide, so that way he could get the money. So the idea that these people were marrying these women and just killing off the men just to have access to their oil, to their rights, to the oil money, it was making them millionaires. So looking at this situation, right? This black woman was talking about how proud she was of her family, who worked the Mississippi Delta, who had all this land that passed down from generation to generation. The prompt says something. It mentioned about if a black system would be consequences, one would not be allowed. So the question is, consequences for what, right? Because here's the reality. Most black people don't see anything inherently wrong with it. Because like Anthony said, love is love, right? Most black people don't really see anything inherently wrong with interracial marriage, dating, reproducing. And truth be told, the numbers that it is right now, it's not really, especially as far as black women. Black women tend to stay within the race. Most black men stay within the race also. But you have a small but a very loud vocal minority who really push this, right? And you'll see some black celebrities going out here and having kids with white women and Asian women and Latino women and having these mixed race kids. But most black people stay within their race. But I do say that, you know, black people do not understand that we are in a conflict, right? We've I've often heard some white racists say that, you know, these black people, they don't want a race war. The reality is we're already in a race war. We've been in a race war for 500 years, and we're not winning it either, right? So white people have consistently been at war with African people, be it economically, socially. It very rarely does it come down to the point of open warfare. But we are in I would say a half millennia long Cold War that does flare up. And this is an aspect of warfare. The ability to get into another group's to access their wealth, their resources, their culture. And we don't seem to really grasp that. Um, even breaching this topic will make a lot of black people angry. If you were to even suggest that these white people are just marrying you or they don't really care about you. And that's the thing, is that a white racist can have sex with a black person, have black children, and still be racist. It doesn't matter to them at all if they're close to you or if they have feeling or you have feelings for them. That's what has really caught a lot of black people off guard with this so-called swirl movement, especially with black women. There's always been a push for black women to marry out, to claim they're too loyal to black men or whatever. And then they go out there. It's like the game whack-a-mole, right? They go out there, they stick their head up that hole, and they get whacked in the head with this racism. And then it's like, oh no, you know, I can't believe they're racist. Yeah, because you're not paying attention. So as a family unit, back to the dressing the prompt, as a family unit, she mentioned they had like almost 1,000 descendants, right? In a family unit, they would have to basically recognize the danger that intermingling has. They would have to understand that this is a method that white people use to gain access to resources. I don't think a lot of our people are that politically aware to recognize this tactic for what it is, right? But there's been too many famous black people who've had interactions with white people and they lose everything. Look at Shannon Sharp. You know, look at what happened what's that one? Look at Halle Berry. Halle Berry married a white dude. He called it an N-word. They broke up. She got to pay him child support. You know what I'm saying? So here you got a black woman, Tiger Woods, and it happens to all these famous black people with money. Most black people in the United States, we don't have no money. Let's just be honest with you. But you see how it's targeted, right? That those black people with wealth are targeted for resource extraction. Jamie Foxx is another one. Jamie Foxx got sick and died, and he said, "I swear I'm black. I'm gonna leave white women alone." He get healthy again. Where he at? He got a car full of white women. You know what I'm saying? It's snowing. If it ain't snowing, he ain't going. But I just feel like we don't recognize this as a threat. I think that overall, black people do not see white people as a threat to our very existence, right? So because we don't have this threat, we don't identify the threat, right? It creeps up on us all the time, right? Now we can see other black people as a threat, no problem. Another black person entering the room will have us ready, go into a fight or flight response. But with white people, for some reason, because white people have the greatest PR in history, white people have been able to rebrand themselves in such a way that we don't inherently see them as dangerous. And that is, I think, the danger. Trigger happy white people don't want to get rid of black people. That's not their goal, right? White society, Western society requires an outlet for their aggression. That's kind of something Barimba Ani talked about in Yurugu, that Western society requires a scapegoat. Their culture has high levels of aggression, right? And that aggression needs to be taken out on somebody, right? If they didn't have anyone to take it out on, they take it out on themselves, which would destroy their society. Right. But that's why there always is a need for like a cultural other, like a release valve. They don't have a desire to get rid of black people. That's not what they want to do. They want black people to be close at hand where they can abuse us. They don't want to let us go. They don't want to let us thrive. Their idea is that when they have, as in right now, America's in an economic downturn, they want somebody to blame. It's the immigrants. It's the blacks. The crime's out of control, so on and so forth. And that way they can justify their aggression towards us. So I think I've said my piece. I'll go ahead and let the other people in the panel talk. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, Black Steel. In the chat, shout out to Brother Bakari. He says, North Carolina is horrible with interracial dating and marriage. If you guys remember last week, Brother Bakari was in North Carolina. He was telling us about how it looks out there. And there's a continuation of that still fresh on his mind. North Carolina is horrible with interracial dating and marriage. Shout out to Musings and Bloom. I know I've seen you here before, but it's been a while. So I don't know if to say brother or sister, but shout out to you for being here. Musings and Bloom says, I must say, the baby boomer generation did a terrible job by failing to pass on a black consciousness / radical tradition to their children. These kids are a product of liberal / assimilationist ideology. Musings and Bloom goes on to say menticide is in full effect, and social media has either made it worse or sheds light on how deep the ongoing accelerating genocidal campaigns against us. We have become people with minuscule survival skills. Nuisance coming in hot. With that said, let me hear from Jacadero on this. Jacadero would say.
So I had seen this. I had seen the video clip on TikTok, and I had no idea that if this is her and this is a picture from a wedding ceremony, that this would be it, because she seemed really proud. That was one of the things that drawn me to give a like to the video clip from TikTok, was she seemed so proud, really, really proud about the family reunion and the land that her ancestors left her, and especially the number. She has the data. There's over 1,000 descendants from that one union. It's fucking awesome. Yeah, it's likely that the ownership, if she has ownership, again, if the ownership were to transfer to the husband side of the family, it would have to already be on her, just because, she's making a TikTok video. That doesn't necessarily mean she has ownership. And this goes back to politics. It's like, who amongst you has the wherewithal of what is the best for your group? In the African traditional setting, it's usually the chief or the council of elders, and then they make those decisions. But in modern Africa, now we're voting on those things. And so you're supposed to vote on the person that represents your morals and values the best. I know that African elections are controversial because rigging claims, but nonetheless, I don't necessarily know that she already has ownership over the land. So if she does, then I misspoke. I also want to add in is like, Garvey talked about this over 100 years ago about how the future Africans of North America will look almost identical to the white counterparts. And you see it. The first time that I saw Mariah Carey, I had to be told that she was mixed. I thought she was a straight up white woman. I bring this up because I had no idea. But I think where Garvey was saying that is because you're in a land that it's a numbers game. Like what is surrounding you, and then who are the owners of your everyday life. We take a look at South Africa. They've had a white minority population for the longest, but yet, like, they don't necessarily have a miscegenation problem like the way that it is in Brazil and the United States. And why is that? I want to preface this again with, I'm not with miscegenation, but I'm saying that if there is a political strategy to move a group of people into your predominantly Black society, can this still work out where you are not erased out? I'm on the side that I think that it can work. If Israel and South Sudan were to make that agreement and send Gaza residents into South Sudan, I don't think that, in 100 years or 200 years, that South Sudan would look like Sudan North, Khartoum, Sudan, and then you just have an Arab African admixture that is the majority dominant. No. You would still have to, there'd still be a lot of things at play. I believe that the majority of South Sudan is owned and operated by South Sudanese, ethnic South Sudanese. So it's like, what do you gain from marrying a Gaza resident? Again, they would be the underclass in that situation. I bring that parallel to the situation that we have at hand. I think this is Mississippi. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but wherever this land is who controls. Sure, they might do subsistence farming on this land, but I would be very surprised to find out that aside from the subsistence farming, like what are the different ways that the youth can make money in this place? Now, they might not need money, sure, but I see that there's a vehicle. How did they get that vehicle? They have horses. Whenever there's a horse that's sick, who's getting the funding to send that horse to a veterinary? These are the things that you have to ask yourself. If these aren't controlled and managed and operated by people that look like you, well, then you're in some big trouble. There's a reason why, it's really, really difficult to get, for anybody, Black or white, to get Chinese citizenship in China. And if you do, they're accepting it at a small rate. I think China, Japan, Eritrea, these are the hardest places on earth to get citizenship, and for a good reason. They have great leaders that say that we're going to accept a small amount of immigrants to become citizens, because we know that what can happen when we allow a large amount of outsiders into this country to live permanently and create a livelihood for themselves and future generations. So I say that, yes, we're not taking accountability away from this woman, but again, is she a title owner? Does she own the land title? Is that in her possession? And then two, where are we at? Okay, we're in North America. Well, how many of us can say that even the simplest things, there was memory doesn't serve me correct, but I believe it was a salon in Houston, Texas, a black-owned salon. And the lady said that, the owner of the salon said that, we have a budget strictly for all the trades, from the electrical work, HVAC work, cabinetry work, etc. And she said that my first priority on the agenda of things is to make sure that I find a black carpenter or a black contracting electrician, a black contractor for plumbing, HVAC, et cetera, et cetera. So if we are far and few in between in those things, then we need to talk about, well, what incentive would be for our women and men to marry amongst each other if they're not, quote unquote, building? We always talk about this, let's build. What have we built, so that way that there is an incentive? Because yes, marriage is a political statement, but it's also a socio-political statement as well, meaning that, what do I gain from this? What do I gain from marrying into your family? What do you gain from marrying into my family? I'm proud that, I surround myself with individuals that marry black, and me, myself, I'm looking forward to that whenever that comes in my life. But I also don't necessarily look down on others that feel like they might not have an outlet. I'm not saying I'm with miscegenation or interracial dating, but I am saying that, again, what are the benefits? We are in the time and age where, dating is a hot topic button issue since the pandemic, and it's largely because a lot of black people feel like, like one or the other are asking a lot of us. Well, because it's expected, but we're in a land where a lot of things have happened, and we're trying to correct those things. Is it too late now? I don't know.
So let me disagree with you on that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just quick shout out to Cheryl in the chat who asks what the F is going on here. So in this video that's on mute right now, this is a quote unquote black woman showing off the 48 acres that's been in her family for some time, and they're celebrating at their family reunion. Before this video, though, there's a post with the same black woman. If you look closely, the same black woman is in this bridal shower pic, married to pasty white boy, with other white boys involved in the ceremony. And the person who posted this, Jellen, says her husband will be owning those 48 acres in 3 years. So that's what we're discussing right now. I know Black Steel want to say something. I think Anthony wanted to say something. Before I go to Buana, let's get Black Steel and Anthony, and then I'll set up Buana.
So when you say Jack and Darrell talk about black people building and whatnot, black people have always built, right? But whenever we build our things, it gets destroyed, right? So to me, it's always funny whenever I hear these, and I'm not talking about you, Jack and Darrell, personally. I know you said you're not a fan of the swirl, whatever. But whenever I hear these black people talk about how things are superior, white women, black men, white men tend to have more money. They can give you the soft life and everything else like that, right? But then they'll turn around and they'll date a white man that's nowhere near. I see some of the white men that black women date, and they're just white color. Every negative stereotype about black people, but in white, right? So they're not dating them because of any economic. They're dating them because they're white, because proximity to whiteness is value. right? They would literally see a black man who has every checks every box they want, but because he's black, he's automatically less. A lot of this interracial dating is not about being in love, but about proximity to whiteness, right? Because every negative stereotype about black people, they have embodied it. Black women are loud, they're argumentative, they have a whole lot of kids, they're fat, they're this, they're that, and then they'll turn around and get a fat white woman, right? Or black men are abusive, they don't take care of their kids, and they don't want to marry black women, and they'll turn around and marry a white dude who does the exact same thing. Because the idea is that they are white. Therefore, their whiteness elevates them. So it's not so much, oh, some people are building, some people are not. Because a lot of white people ain't building shit. You know, a lot of white people are struggling in this, but because they are white, right? A lot of black people deal with a lot of internal trauma, right? And that's real. That's a real fact. Being black is not an easy thing. It's not. From the moment you're born, from the moment you come, from the time your mother is carrying you as a baby, you're dealing with all type of racial microaggressions. You come out the womb, you're being told that your hair is bad, your skin is bad, everybody you know is bad. All you guys do is commit crime and don't take care of your kids, yada 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 yada. And is it any wonder that black people internalize that? And they feel like, you know what, maybe if I could just escape this curse, this blackness that I have, maybe it would be better. And that's kind of what they do. So it's not so much about who's building what, who's not building what. It's just about, hey, how can I escape blackness? Is really more so than it, because they'll get a white dude who's not building shit, you know, and they'll build him up. We've seen a situation where these black women are dating white dudes, and they're the ones footing the bill. They're the ones paying for the dinners and the vacation and everything else like that. But a black man could never get away with it. They'll date a nerdy white man before they date a nerdy black man, and I've seen that personally. So I'll stop there.
Anthony, brother, we wait on you.
Okay, all right. No, I was waiting on you to give me the QR code. All right. Well, for the most part, Black Steel took everything I wanted to say. You know what I'm saying? Everything he pretty much covered it. But like what I wanted to say to Jacadero is this right here. Brother Jacadero, I'm saying, okay, to you.
Yes,
if
sir.
you're black, okay, what I'm saying, and it's not a criticism. Don't take it like that way. Well, more of a constructive criticism. Okay, what I'm saying is this right here. Okay, if you black and you for black people, in which I know you are, and you for black people, and you want to see black people progress, you want to see us get everything that we deserve in this world, man. Get what's ours. There is no room at all for any kind of compromise, brother. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like you was about the building thing. No, it ain't. I don't give a damn. No, if that black man or that black woman marries somebody that's not black, that's detrimental to us, man. I don't give a damn. If y'all remember when Ice Cube came out with those movies, the Barbershop. Maybe one of the earlier Barbershop movies. It was in one of those movies that it was a sister who was in a relationship with a white dude. And the white dude was abusive, used to beat her up. He used to put his hands on her. And in the movie, look how it played out. I say this goes to the mindset. Now just think about if brother had put his hands on a sister, and they always, and the whole narrative would be, no, he ain't shit. You know, shitting on the brother, you know, and he deserves, you know, because you don't put your hands on a woman, man. You don't put your hands on our sister. That's deservedly so in that aspect. But I'm saying he would have been drugged through the mud in public and everything, you know, and called all kind of names. He's an abuser, whatever. But at the same time, they gave the white boy a pass in the movie. And the family, the black family, even women in the black, people in the black family, even brothers, was like, you know, y'all work it out. They had the preacher and everybody trying to counsel them. They helped them work it out. They helped work it out, this sister who was in this relationship with the white boy who was beating her up. You know what I'm saying? Who was beating her ass, putting hands on her. And she crying and going to the family, why he act like this and why he doing this here. And then in the end, they worked it out and he apologized and they went on with the relationship. That's trying to tell us something, man. Now, they used to have a saying here in North America, here in this land right here, that the lowest white man is better than any black man. You know what I'm saying? That's a saying they used to have. They don't care how low down and dirty this cracker was. He could be the worst nigga hater or whatever. But you know what? It was better to be him than to be you. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of thing works in our mind, us as black people. You know what I'm saying? And not just here, but everywhere. You know, like Black Steel said, the proximity to whiteness. This is because of the proximity to whiteness. Nothing else. It ain't got nothing to do with no love or no building or none of that bullshit. It's the proximity to whiteness, man. Because you know what? I mean, starting all the way from the religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, whatever. You know, what gods you worship? The majority of us. If you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, you worship a God that don't look like you. If you're white, you worship old blue-eyed Jesus. I mean, if you're black, if you're a Christian, you worship old white blue-eyed Jesus. And if you're a Muslim, you worship old Muhammad from the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? And you basically black, but you basically are Arabic. You know what I'm saying? You follow that. You bow into Mecca. You know what I'm saying? You talk about the prophet. The prophet. And if you read the Quran, what the prophet has said about black people, you know what I'm saying? It's the proximity to otherness, other than our damn self, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's so important for us to study the blueprint that the Honorable Marcus Garvey gave us when he talked about race first. You know what I'm saying? We had to put ourselves first. But see, we as black people, we don't put ourselves first. You know what we do? We say everything is everything. Everything is equal. And we are equal. Everybody is equal. And you know, we love people and love is love. And, you know, white people and brown people and people of color, everything else. But you know what? At the end of the day, we always putting our damn self last. So we put everybody else before we put ourselves. So what I'm saying, man, no, man, you got to be black. You got to be 100% black. You got to be 100% for your people. I don't give a damn what white man can come in with a little money and somebody you can get with him, or one white woman come in, you can get with her, and y'all somebody building something, because I can't build nothing with black people. I don't have no out. No, that's bullshit, man. That's bullshit. I mean, the greatest thing you could do is produce more black people. That's revolutionary. That's symbolic of our love. Seeing more of us and creating more of us. You know what I'm saying? And training our children in the way that we need to train them. You know, so we can have a future in this world, man. And I'll leave it right there for now.
Appreciate that, Jack and Anthony. Afro Native World, the chat says to Anthony, Papa Garvey believed in a black Jesus, though. Is that a solution? Anthony would say.
No, man. You know, I'm not gonna. I hear that right there, and that's a good thing. But I have to put that in context. Honorable Marcus Garvey grew up in a colonial country, in a country that was a colony of the Europeans. Okay, so he grew up with that tradition. But at least I go back to what Dr. Clark said. At least what he did, yeah, well, he worshipped the black Jesus and he had black Christianity, whatever. But you know what? His mind wasn't enslaved to that. At least what he tried to do was make it work for his people. Okay, now, yeah, I'm against the Christianity thing. That ain't my thing. You know what I think he missed the mark, but we ain't gonna judge him for that because we're gonna put it in context. But if you look at what he did, what he built, the organization that he built, the movement that he built, and even right now today, all of us on this panel right now, me, you, Koku, all of us, we all hold him in high esteem. We don't hold that against him. You know what I'm saying? Because we know what his real intention was. We know that he had to reach people, and he knew that the majority of us in the Western Hemisphere was what? We Christians. So he had to meet us where we was at. So that's what we're gonna look at. We got to put it in context. We can't just say no, put it out there. And I respect the question. I respect that the statement by the brother. He's 100% right on. But you got to look at what he did with that. Okay, yeah, he believed in black Jesus. Okay, yeah, he believed in black Christianity. But what he did, it's because of him that inspired a lot of African leaders on the continent and in the diaspora to go for their independence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was his teaching, his philosophy that influenced a lot of our ancestors. You know, in the African liberation movement. So we got to look at it right there, man. Let's don't judge him for that. Let's judge him for everything he did. And we know one thing, that the Honorable Marcus Garvey was 100% for us.
Appreciate that, Anthony. In the chat, Sister Ross says, just because you make it black, don't make it real. Seen? Sister Ross, seen. I'm going to put down the t-shirt, as a matter of fact. Cheryl says, with Garvey, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Confusion is in all of us to some level. With all of that said, one, you've seen and heard everything everyone else had to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yo, so first, I want to respond to the Garvey issue. Okay. So, as Anthony said, Marcus Garvey grew up in a colonial society, and so did I. You know, and it's very difficult, and it's very difficult to come out of a burning house without smelling like smoke. It's extremely difficult, and we want our leaders to be perfect and to be all knowing, but that is just not real. That's just not true. And sometimes my brethren, Anthony, gets very mad at me, very upset at me because of some of the things that I say. But I won't call myself a victim, but I grew up under a colonial regime just as he did. So some of the things sometimes you hear from me, sometimes that's what do you call it, John Bull. In America they have Uncle Sam. You know, we had John Bull, and that presence is still very much alive in these former colonial countries. But what you could get away with, you could get away with. And me, like Garvey, decide to break away from that. But there'll still be remnants and that sometimes you hear from us, even Goku from time to time, you know? So you have to forgive us for not being perfect African people and perfect thinking African people, you know? But what we could get away with, we buttress against the dominant thought. You know, we ain't imbued with that idea of Englishness and Anglicanism because we fight against it, but we still come out the house smelling like smoke. Let me put it like that. So you have to forgive us from time to time. But needless to say, let me answer the question. The whole idea of integration, because for me, this is a question of integration. White men believe in social integration. There's a social integration and there's an economic integration. White men don't have a problem with social integration. Thomas Jefferson had children with Sally Hemings. He had no problem with socially integrating with her and having children with her. If you watch the movie The Django, you would see Calvin Candy, a plantation owner, having a relationship with a black woman called Sheba. They have no issue with social integration. But the black mind, when the brother talking about when we get into certain things, we overdo it. Like John Henry Clark said, we out Pope the Pope and we out Muhammad. We believe in this idea of integration so much so that we think that it'll touch every area and element in our lives. White men don't think like that. White men will socially integrate with you, but you ain't getting his money. You think that character, Sheba, as much sex as she was having with Calvin Candy, he would leave his plantation to her? Are you crazy? Do you think Thomas Jefferson would leave all his assets to Sally Hemings, even though he had children with her? There's a difference between social integration and economic integration. And we buy the whole idea of multiculturalism and integration wholesale without the thought of. And the brother asked the question, is there a consequence? If I was a landowner and a wise thinking landowner, first of all, I am going to make standard reading for anyone who were to get any of my assets after I depart from here. You have to read standard reading, Killers of a Flower Moon. You must read that. If you don't read it, you have to watch it on the movies, but you must read that. That's standard reading. The next consequence, for me personally, a real consequence, is putting into my will. This land is to be passed on to people of African descent. Period. That's my will. That's my will. You can't get around that. You can't get around that. So if she decides to have mulattoicize her lineage, if she decides to take a lineage to a level where you don't see no other black people no more, she just does not inherit my land. It's as simple as that. Neither does her heirs or ancestors or people who come after her. Just put it in your will. Easy consequence. Just as other groups of people do, you could do the same thing as well. Right into the courthouse. And you can't say it's illegal because it's your will and it's your property. It's private property, privately owned land. Because when we talking about acres and acres of land that is possibly able to transfer a substantial amount of wealth, then you have to put as a wise person is going to be a wise steward of his affairs. Just simply write into the document, no person who is no African origin or no African descent can have ownership of this land. Period. Too sweet, right away. There are several things I wanted to discuss, but the brothers have touched so many things. I really forget now because of the discussion. But I just really wanted to just put that out there. If that is the case, my consequence will just be putting it into my will, that it is my will to pass on any assets or any substantial holdings that I possess on to African people or people of African descent. And if you don't fit that criteria, you don't own my land. Period. Full stop. Underline. Witnessed. And for me that is consequential enough. That is. So if you want to go on to this fantasy land and live in these ideas, do your thing. Because I understand in the Bahamas, if you're a black man, you could pass on your citizenship much easier than a woman could. Much easier. And the reason why the founding fathers put that in that document there is because there is more likely that the man will marry a man imposes himself. He gonna bring a woman into his country and he gonna make a Bahamian. More than likely she gonna be Bahamian. But for a Bahamian woman, I know some people can say it's sexist, and many Bahamian women think that way. Many women don't. But they didn't put into the Constitution that if you marry a foreigner, you can't pass on citizenship. You can't pass on citizenship. They don't. So there was a whole shebang about that idea and issue that is being sexist and all that stuff like that. But they put into that document for a reason. You don't want some trifling dude, foreign person to come into the country, with a bag full of money and then change the culture and even the culture or the society itself. But that's why they put those things into that document. Now, some may say that's sexist, but that was their intention of doing it. Maybe, I don't know, at the time. But I would just put it into a will not to allow that and permit that to happen. But I'll leave it there just to be brief.
Thank you for that, Juan. Are there any last thoughts on this prompt? All right. With that said, man, good discussions going on in the chat. I guess guys were too busy to drop those emojis for me. Let me know what you guys think of the conversations happening on the panel tonight. But good interactions from you guys in the chat. You guys are carrying on some side conversations. I actually like to see that. Shout out to Trigger Happy, Afro Native World, Cheryl, and Moosings and Bloom. And also Sister Raw. Let's go to Should Breeze topic number 3 tonight. Should Breeze topic number 3 says identity crisis at its best. This comes with a attachment that's going to take us back to X again. This is from Voice of Our Ancestors channel. It says Shaka Zulu was an American Indian pretendian. Indigenous identity theft must stop. We're going to watch this video. It's short. We're going to watch it maybe twice and then discuss it.
Shaka Zulu was an American Indian. Like, oh, you don't believe me? Just Google Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu was an American Indian. Like, oh, you don't believe me? Just Google Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu was an American Indian. Like, oh, you don't believe me? Just Google Shaka Zulu.
So let me just scroll down and see if there's anything else to this. Doesn't seem like it's a thread or anything. Some more with the American flag and the drop of blood. Named Jake said that's an African or Caribbean child, and then starts laughing, as well as giving the laughing gift. So the dramatics indeed. Identity crisis at its best. I see the chat having a good chuckle over it. Trigger Happy is laughing. Using and Luna's laughing. Even Sister Raw joined in, laughing her ass off as well. So let's welcome back our brother Anthony. Anthony, did you see that post?
Yeah, I see. I got back in time to see it, man. Where he said Shaka Zulu was an American Indian.
Yes, sir. What are your thoughts about
it? Yeah, man. Look, it's ridiculous. It's hilarious. I mean, it's so ridiculous that it's hilarious. Because I mean, and this whole thing, we could trace this back. Well, we could trace it back in recent memory to that brother Dane Calloway. But I mean, it goes back even deeper than that, though. I mean, you ever notice? Okay, now they had this theory. They got this theory going on among. Okay, check this out. I'm gonna get a little bit deep. Now check this out, Koku, and all the brothers and sisters on the panel. Now check this out. With the advent in the early 1900s, okay, they had these movements that was going on in the early 1900s, you know, in Afro-America. Okay, you had the Garvey movement, you know, which came around, I think around like in 1914, 1916, somewhere in that time. Okay, you also had these other movements. You had the Hebrew Israelite movement, which started off back then too. You had with this guy who used to call himself Grandfather Abraham. It was like, I think they was the House of Judah or something like that. It was one of these old called the House of Judah, but it was the Black Hebrew thing. It started around that same time in the early 1900s. Then you had the one that was the most detrimental. You had Timothy Drew. This brother named Timothy Drew, also known as Noble Drew Ali. And he came around at the same time. And matter of fact, he and Garvey knew each other. They knew each other, and had a mutual respect. But Timothy Drew Ali is the one whose teachings a lot of this stuff come from. It comes from about this Asiatic black man thing, about this black indigenous thing. They come here because you hear these brothers who the Moors, who are the descendants of Timothy Drew Ali, talking about how the Moors went everywhere and how the Moors were here in America, how the Moors founded America. Matter of fact, they say that America is Amuraka, like from Morocco. They don't change the name. You know what I'm saying? So they got this narrative now where they've they saying that America, North America, is really Africa. Have you heard that, Coco? They said that America is Africa.
Yes, sir. Egypt was in America.
Yeah, and that Egypt, and that the Mississippi River is the Nile River.
Right.
Yeah, they said that the Mississippi River is the Nile River. You know what I'm saying? So they had this whole thing where they switching things around, and they talk about like like right here where I stay in Northwest Louisiana. Okay, if you go east towards Monroe, they got a place. It's a place. See, they had these indigenous people a long time ago. They used to build these mounds. I know you probably heard of them, the mound builders. And you see them all in the whole Mississippi River Valley, all the way up to Illinois. They had this place called Cahokia up there, where it was an ancient city where these indigenous people built. Well, they had one down here called Poverty Point. It's called Poverty Point over there in northeast Louisiana, with this mound, almost kind of like a pyramid type of thing, where those indigenous people built. Well, they got Negroes now. They saying, well, see, this was us. This was ancient. This was ancient Africa. These were the pyramids. They said that the mound builders were the pyramids, and that we black indigenous people built these pyramids, these mounds, this mound civilization in North America. I mean, you see how they switching it up. This goes to people who don't know who they are. Who confused about everything. Because we know we black, we know we African, but we don't know what group we from. We don't know what ethnic affiliation that we from. No, we don't know what part we from. We from Nigeria, we from the Congo, we from wherever we from. We don't know where we from. So us being lost, and it's not just us, it's even some of our people in the wider diaspora. Because I see people in Jamaica, man, believe it, they got people in Jamaica and black people in Jamaica and black people in other parts of the Caribbean, even in Haiti, who saying that they black indigenous. It ain't just us crazy people up here. It's all over the diaspora. They got us somebody that we indigenous. Hey, I ain't got to tell you. Hey, I can stay right here on the show. Our brother Azuli say we indigenous. You know what I'm saying? Didn't he, Coco? Azuli say we black indigenous. That we ain't from Africa. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of our brothers who we all love right there on the show. And he's not the only one. It's a lot of people saying that now. But man, it's just like, when I hear this stuff, I kind of laugh at it, I chuckle at it a little bit, because it's a small minority of people, but they got a big mouth and they talk a lot. They talk a lot. I mean, you see it on social media, especially you go to Instagram. Man, I see this all the time. Me and a sister got into the debate. We be going back and forth. Man, this sister be texting me, DMing me and everything, sending me DMs, everything, talking about how we the Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? How we the American Indians. And even coming up with scenarios that the black indigenous people was shipped from here to Africa and then shipped back over here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just some of the most ridiculous stuff that you ever heard of. I mean, I'm like, they call it the slave trade in reverse. You know what I'm saying? And it's just ridiculous. I actually seen them. They had this thing where, now the traditional dress of a lot of our African people on the continent, pre-colonial. Now, some of our people wore like birds' feathers and stuff. Now they have it. This is where they got it. They got it now. They got a picture of like some of the kings of Bakongo, the Bakongo kingdom in Central Africa, with him with a plumed headdress. You know what I'm saying? And they saying, see there? They saying that he was a Native American. That these Africans were Native Americans. Talking about how they shipped us from here, our homeland in North America, to Africa, and then shipped us back over here to be slaves. So it's ridiculous, man. And when I hear that, it just make me, I just like, well, man, that's just some bullshit. They can't, And they only know a few. That's the ironic thing. They only know a few tribes. They know the Cherokees, they know the Seminoles, they know the Choctaws, and ironically, guess what other tribe they know? They know the Blackfoot. The Blackfoot. Now that tells me something. Now, if you're a student of history, history in this country, you know, a student of knowing everything that happened in this country, you know one thing. Okay, the Blackfoot, that was a Plains tribe. That was one of those groups from way over there. The Blackfoot didn't have nothing to do with that with us down here. You know what I'm saying? But just because it's the Blackfoot. Oh, it's the Blackfoot, they must have been black. They got black feet, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that must have been us. You know, and I'm seeing pictures, they take black and white pictures from the 1880s with these dark skinned looking indigenous people, not these black and white pictures. You know what I'm saying? And they saying, see there, I told y'all, no, we the Native Americans. I always ask them, well, what happened to your goddamn hair? You know what I'm saying? Well, they got that long, straight, black, Asiatic hair. How did all of a sudden from 1880 to 1888 picture, all our hair turned into this old frizzy African hair? You know what I'm saying? How we get these afros? You know what I'm saying? How we get this nappy ass hair? You know, in that short period of time. You know, they can't answer that, man. I mean, you know, it's just people who don't have a knowledge of themselves. That's one thing that Elijah Muhammad used to talk about. Black people don't have a knowledge of themselves. And for for all what you think about Elijah Muhammad or the Nation of Islam, at least he did acknowledge that we was African people and that we came from here. Yeah, they might talk about Asiatic black man, but you know, in their ideology, they call the world Asia, and Africa was called Asia too. You know what I'm saying? But it's just ridiculous though, man. And when I hear, you know, it make me want to laugh. And then and what's so bad about it, now you have these celebrities who are coming pushing this. No, that's why I think this is a narrative that's being pushed by the power structure. Definitely, because you had Ice Cube. Now here you go, Ice Cube, when he had with his little black his contract with Black America, whatever the hell he called it and shit. And, you know, he had one or two good things in it, but you know, Ice Cube actually said, I remember he did an interview with that other that brother you know, those crazy integration Negro Roland Martin. He did an interview with Roland Martin, and you know what he said? And Roland Martin looked at him side eye. That was for the first time I was on Roland Martin's side. Well, Ice Cube told Roland Martin that we, the black people, that we are the Native Americans. And he said it to Trump. He said we the Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? We were the Indians. So I'm saying, you know, this whole kind of thing, it's an agenda behind this, man. It's agenda driven to like, you know, to exploit the identity crisis in black people. You know, you Native Americans, you black indigenous, you black aboriginal, you Hebrew Israelites, you Moors, and all that shit, to keep us from linking up with our people, to link up with black people all around the world. You know, because they know one thing, the worst thing that can happen is for black people in America, in the diaspora, to link up with black people on the continent. Because see, they got if these people wake up, if they come together and wake up, and like some of our African brothers sisters on the continent get some race consciousness, like you have from some of our black leaders. When I say race consciousness from black people here, I'm not talking about the masses. I'm talking about our leaders. You know what I'm saying? Our Malcolm X. If we start believing like Malcolm and like the Honorable Marcus Garvey, if that kind of ideology could get spread to our people on the continent who got the land, who got the resources, and got all of that, they know that their white shit is over with. At least as far as like them exploiting us. You know, we know how powerful we're gonna be when we all think like that. But you know, I think it's a government-driven thing. It's a power structure-driven thing. Because you know, how can this Negro look with a straight face and say some shit like that? You know, I mean, how can we look at it with a straight face? You know what I'm saying? Believe some shit like that. But yeah, man, I knock off right there. It's you know, we all know it's some bullshit. But you know, I mean, I think it's an agenda behind that, though.
Good stuff, Anthony. I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a top-down type of thing. Some Negroes are so silly, they're following it, and they truly believe it. but there's others more nefarious Negroes who are paid to be disruptors and stuff like that. You know, a couple things you said, Anthony, I wanted to back up. You're right. There are Jamaicans who are talking about who are speaking about being indigenous Jamaicans. There were Haitians who were doing it too. There were Black Brits who were also doing it. They say they're the foundational British Africans or something like that. They call themselves. Speaking of doctoring images and stuff, like Musings and Bloom says here, but in the age of Chat GPT, I fear these historical rewritings / distortions of history will further pollute the data set, and younger children will be hoodwinked unless we relentlessly counter these venom. And Musings hits on a couple of things there. We gotta be working. We gotta be active. The idea of just sitting back and letting people fall prey is complete nonsense, respectfully. You wouldn't if you're the shepherd, you're not gonna let your sheep just fall into a ravine somewhere and say it is what it is. We gotta be active, we gotta do the work. Speaking of that image stuff and data set stuff, a Negro, one of these FBA Negroes, tried to pass off a video that was made like with AI of these dark-skinned Native Americans that have like black features but the long hair that Anthony spoke of, and a lot of people had to call him out on that, me included. So yeah, we have to really get active, counter the false narratives. In the chat, Cheryl said, this is why it's so important for homeschooling. Cheryl, welcome to the panel tonight. How are you this week?
Yes, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Thanks for coming through. So, what are your thoughts on
Oh, I'm sorry.
what are your thoughts on that crisis?
So because it is funny, but at the same time, like okay, like I be like when I talk to people like on the street, they really do. I don't. It's not an arrogance per se. It's more like they're really trying to find out like who they are and where they're from. But because people don't like reading, so it's like you're trying to tell them something, but they're just like, well, that's just what you believe, and da 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 da. It's like anti people are people are anti information. Um, and I just say that to say that, like, even with this guy, this saying that Shaka Zulu is indigenous, it's like his name is Shaka Zulu. Now, if you could tell me what indigenous American tribe has that kind of name, and you can, because this is why this is why naming is so important. There's so many things, but this is why naming is so important, because Shaka Zulu is that is a name from that region. It's from the Zulu people, like, but people don't like Americans in particular, and sometimes Caribbeans, but Americans in particular, we don't understand that naming is cultural. We don't understand it's tied to someone's culture. So if the name should indicate who you are, it should be undeniable where you're from. My name, if I say my name is Ama, well then everybody on the continent knows, well, that's an African name, that's a Ghanaian name. Your name identifies who you are, so you don't need all of this bull crap about how he's indigenous. It's just ridiculous. It's just stupid. These people are anti-information, and that's really all it is.
Appreciate that, Cheryl. Black Steel, what say you?
So this is rooted in anti-black. This is rooted in anti-blackness and self-hatred. right? Black people do not want to be African. Africa has a negative connotation. When you look on the TV, you see African people fighting, you see African people starving, and many people see these images on TV and media, and they don't want to be connected to any of it. Many people are unaware of Africa's greatness. I remember there was some woman, she said she was happy that her ancestors were enslaved because otherwise she would be in Africa worshiping a tree, right? Some dude said that there was no buildings above two-story in Africa. Africans were ignorant and savages, and they were dumb, and they didn't contribute anything to history. So what does that say about you if you're African? That means you're dumb. That means you didn't contribute anything to history. All right. So when we hear these things, and they're completely absurd, right? I've heard stuff about the Nile being the Mississippi River. Now, meanwhile, there's no lions on the Mississippi. There's no giraffes or hippopotamuses in the Mississippi. But the Mississippi is really the Nile River. The Nile flows from south to north. The Mississippi flows from the north in Minnesota into the Gulf of Mexico. But yet the Nile, they're all two different rivers that flow two different ways, but yet it's when you really think about it, it's really absurd on its face. But the reality, these people are coming from a really high level of self-hatred, right? And this is really the true fact of the matter is, right? These people don't want to be African, right? And they want to attach themselves to any identity that is not African. They want to be Native American. They want to be they want to be Moors. They want to be aliens from outer space. They want to be Klingons. They want to be anything but African. They want to belong to any other group. That's why Shaka Zulu can be American Indian. They can't tell you what tribe. They can't tell you anything about Shaka Zulu, but they can just tell you he was Indian. I seen somebody legit post a pic. So for those of you who don't know, the grandson, the Napoleon IV was killed by the Zulus. So, one of Napoleon's descendants decided to join the military and go fight the Zulu in South Africa, and he got killed. So there was a picture dramatizing the event, and these are the real Native Americans. No, they weren't, right? But again, the idea of being African is shameful, and because they don't know anything about Africa. We were enslaved, and Native Americans, they did this, and because in the United States, right? Even though the United States treats Native Americans like dirt, right? Native Americans do not live a good life in America. You might have a few tribes with some casinos and whatnot, but most Native Americans tend to be poor. They tend to be impoverished. They tend to be uneducated. They tend to die early because of disease and whatnot. But that's not what you hear, though, because they have the archetype of the noble savage, right? So these Native Americans, they were fighting for their land, and they were heroic and yada, 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 and they were the noble savages. So it's better to attach yourself to the noble savage than to be, the ignorant, dumb Black people who contribute nothing to civilization. That is, even though Black people were the first people to have civilization, Africa is the birthplace of humanity, right? All human beings, human life evolved in Africa. And some people may not take that position. I don't care what you think. It is scientifically proven through archaeology, through paleontology, through genetics, that human beings originated on the African continent, right? So the idea that African didn't do anything, that we were literally in Africa we were literally around the longest and did nothing. But that's the self-hatred, right? That comes from that. And people want to have these debates and talk about who did what. And I believe that every group of people contributed something to humanity, right? The Chinese did something, the Arabs did something, everybody contributed something. But the idea that African people did nothing, and we were just primitive until we were brought into the likeness of Christianity or Islam or whatever, that is something that is strong. that has really been taught. And I know that at least from my school district, they've done some things to kind of bring the curriculum up to speed. We do talk about Mali, we talk about Ghana, we talk about Songhai, we talk about Mansa Musa and all that other stuff. So we do kind of bring, when we talk about world history, we do have, it's not just focused on what happened in Europe. We talked about imperialism, colonialism, things like that. But the idea that African was just in Africa not doing anything is just ridiculous. And that is what these pretendians cling to. They cling to their self-hatred. They cling to, and they sound like white people. I don't want to be black. I don't want to be black people are this. They're negative. Everything about Africa is negative. Who built the pyramids? Black people didn't build the pyramids. Black people didn't construct any cities. Black people literally lived in huts and ate each other. That's their mentality. So they want to be away from that, right? They really do want to be away from that, and that's all this pretending is. It's a cope, right? These white people are these pretendians are coping with the reality of being black in an anti-black world, and I truly pity them. I do have hostility, especially the ones like the Dan Callaways, who's out here just talking nonsense about our great heroes, about Harriet Tubman never existed, although Harriet Tubman actually knew people like Frederick Douglass. Harriet Tubman received a literally pension from the United States military for her service in the Civil War, but yet she didn't exist. Okay, all right, but whatever, I'm glad. And the thing is, social media has a way of magnifying things. If I were to go and talk to somebody in the street, they wouldn't know it. They wouldn't know anything about this. But social media, because it's so powerful and it's everywhere, they're spreading this nonsense. Anybody can pick up a camera, pick up a phone, and start streaming and say any old thing. I could say black people colonized Mars, and yet, would it be true? No. But because we don't know and we don't study, that is something that is concerning to me. It is menticide. It is an attack on our mentality. It is an attempt to separate us from our ancestry and our culture and the wider black diaspora. I don't think it's going to be successful, but I do think that's what it is. All right, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. In the chat, Cheryl says, white people use the false idea that everyone is from Africa to maintain their position in South Africa. They are literally doing it right now.
So let me clear that up, right? When I say people from Africa, right? Africa is the birthplace of humanity, right? But that doesn't mean all people are African. Life on Earth started in the ocean. That doesn't make you a fish, right? Just because it started someplace doesn't mean that they're African. So I'm not trying to make that point at all.
Musings and Bloom says Dan Calloway has 500K followers, most of which are inflated figures / bots / bot. Just a mess of psyop, major mental warfare. Yeah, it's funny. Me and Brother Bakari had a conversation about that recently too. How these guys buy bots. And by the way, Brother Bakari, if you're listening, remind me of that Netflix documentary you wanted us to check out again. The title of it. I wrote it down at my office, and I left the paper at my office. But yeah, we were talking about this bot thing and how it's funny. You tune into these guys like Tariq Nasheed. From what I hear, he has like 2 million subs. But Mars World TV, somehow they figured out he's paying for like 2,500 subs every month, right? And Bakari was making the joke. They're buying the subs, but they're not buying the bots. So that when they go live, you actually see a number that kind of reflects this 2 million. Like, I was checking out someone recently too, and they got like, 2-3 times the number of subs that say I have. But when I look at their lives, they have the same numbers that we have Shoot the Breeze. Some things not adding up, but that's just a side note. It was a conversation I had with Bakari earlier. With that said, man, again, Brother Bakari, let me know the name of that movie you want us to watch. Jacadero, what say you to this?
This was just like I think it was Anthony earlier said it's so ridiculous that it's comical. But Black Steel said it best. We're not doing our best to educate. Whatever we think that we're doing, we're not doing enough of. That's one part of my answer. The other part is I'm on the side of fence. I think Amos Wilson said it best. Those that don't want to be African, we'll treat them as such. And I'm getting to a point that, if this continues for like another 10 years, it's like, okay, cool. You don't want to be African, that's fine. And then I'll just continue to treat you as such. You don't want to identify. Me, myself, it's like, you see this stuff, whether you call it revisionist history or not, and you just start to ask yourself, like, what's the ultimate goal? Some will say, like, well, they just want reparations. These are Black people that feel like, Black immigrants are just going to take reparation dollars, so they're just trying to separate themselves as much as they can. Okay, cool. And then there's another part that's like, they're just xenophobic, and there's only so much that you can just do about that. I don't have much to add on to this, but if you are somebody that comes across this kind of propaganda on social media, if you feel compelled, correct it. If not, again, you don't want to be African, we'll just treat you as such. But shout out to all the ones that they just know better. That's at the end of the day. Do you know better? If you know better, shame on you. If you don't, wait till the end of the show. I got an organization that you can be a part of, and we can get you the education that you need.
Appreciate that, Jack. Daryl, Trigger Happy in the chat says, for me, I'm okay with them not being African. I'm not okay with them making propaganda. We need to eliminate the propaganda and all will be well. We'll be non-African in the comforts of your home. With that said, that takes us to Buana. Buana, what say you to all of it?
Yeah, so Jacadero asks a question. He said, what is the ultimate goal? I believe that the ultimate goal is to get rid of critical thinking and to turn you into a mindless consumer, to support them and buy all the products that you could buy from them and enrich them as much as possible. To Black Steel's point, Black Steel made a point when he suggested in Africa there are no two-story buildings. And he made that point because the Western mind thinks, some people in the Western world thinks development is okay based on the skyscrapers that I could see. And I thought about that. There's where the critical thinking comes in. Africa, it has a landmass where you could put North America, South America, China, and all of Europe inside of. So why would I have to build up? When you build up, skyscrapers are built for a reason. Skyscrapers are built to solve a problem. It's not necessarily in terms of advancement. Skyscrapers are built because there's not enough space. In Africa, you have so much space. Why do I have to build up? It makes no sense. It makes no sense you build it up when you have a landmass that is extensive beyond extensive. What they say, well, the Africans have no clothes on. They walk in. Why would I have to walk around with an Italian suit in sub-Saharan weather? Does that make any sense? I mean, critical thinking is
images I've heard.
Huh?
That's one of the funniest images I've conjured in my head in a long time. African walking around.
Cool. I walk around and sometimes in suit, If you walk around in a suit in the Bahamas, what can happen when you take the suit off? You drench in sweat. So imagine sub-Saharan. Needless to say, critical thinking is out of fashion. I understand that. I understand that trying to turn this into mindless consumers and drones, right? But what I would say, let me say something good about my indigenous brethren out here. They are trying to question conventional wisdom because conventional wisdom will put a person like Elizabeth Taylor in Egypt and make her the queen of Egypt and then make the king of Egypt a European person. You know, that's what conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom have the best thinkers, the best creators, the best thought leaders of the world is Europeans. So in their questioning to buttress against that, because you should question that. Any intelligent person will question that. In the back of their mind, there's some form of intelligence. So they question conventional wisdom. But the unfortunate thing is, in them questioning conventional wisdom, they embrace delusionalism, delusions. You know, 1 + 1 is still 2 in any world that you live in. You can't question 1 + 1, it ain't 2. It always gonna make 1 + 1 is 2. There are some things you can't throw away and discard. Okay? There are people, not only in the European world, but in all other parts of the world, who come to a consensus of understanding and agreement. When you talk about African culture, when you talk about civilization, when you talk about all these things, if you question these kinds of ideas in the world, whether 1 + 1 equals 2, you must bring relevant evidence. And it has to be peer reviewed, studied by people in your field, and then you have to come up with another kind of consensus. That's providing proper information. But when a Dame Calloway come around and he make these grandiose claims without proper evidence to back up what he says, you're going into delusions. You're going into delusions. And I know the brother say some of these people want to be anti-African. Some of these people just don't know better. Some of these people just don't know better. You know, and the information that's out here right now, unfortunately, is information only to extract the dollars from their wallet. and you have to have the will. You have to have the will. You have to have the want to get information, and it takes time to do that. It takes time to read. It takes time to study. It takes time to understand other things in the world. It takes time to invest in your own personal self-development. These people don't have the time to do that. I want the fast food thing that's going to make me feel good so I can walk away with some degree of arrogance, you know, to help me with my low self-esteem. But the world telling me that I'm a piece of nothing. And the only way you're going to get that is you have to put some investment in trying to understand the other things of the world, because it's out here. So many books has been written. There's many brothers who speak of Anthony McFall always talking about historical things. You think that he understands these things in a day? He spent years understanding these things in terms of personal development. So when he heard a nonsense, he only have to laugh at it. It becomes laughable. But I would say these younger people, I'm hopeful that because in their hand they have something called smartphones, and smartphones are supposed to make you smart, but it looks like it's going in the other direction. But I am hopeful for the future that some of these people grab on to better kinds of information, because you could start off stupid, but it don't mean you have to end off stupid. You know what I mean? You don't have to die in ignorance. Some people could die in intelligence. You know, Malcolm X started off as Detroit Red, but he end up as who he end up as. So I would hope and give these people time to get out of this nonsense, and hopefully they grab on to something that's real, but to embrace delusions because it make you feel good for a time. You're gonna be sorely disappointed, and then you can go on to the next other thing that some person contrive, some mousetrap like the Tariq Nasheeds of the world is gonna create, and have you into another cult where they're extracting resources from you. You know, while Africa been here, it's been here a long, long time. Many scholars have written on it. Your ancestors have written on it. And when you pass through all that nonsense, hopefully you don't be too old to have some better understanding of what the world really actually is. Hopefully it don't take you 30 and 40 and 50 years and hopefully you're not an old fool until you start to develop yourself and get better information. So I would just leave it there. I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that, Bono. Before I introduce our latest panelist, I think Anthony had a question he wanted to ask. Go ahead, Anthony.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And hey, man, I apologize for getting in front of somebody, another speaker. But I wanted to say this real quick. I got the question I want to ask, but I just want to say one real quick thing before I ask. Okay. In the 1930s in West Africa, in French colonial West Africa, and I think it was in Mali, there was these French archaeologists were doing some research. They ran across the Dogon people. Now we all know I think most of us probably heard of the Dogon people. Now the Dogon people, they live in a part of Mali. I ain't gotta say this. Anyway, the Dogon people they were performing a ceremony. It's a ceremony that they hold once every 60 years. The ceremony is called the Sigi. Okay, so the French archaeologists they walked up on this ceremony and they seen it performing this ceremony. And of course you see this Dogon brother with this mask and a long pointed thing way up in the air. This mask has a long pointed thing. It's way up in there. But anyway, the French was wondering, what is this ceremony? They was trying to find out what it was. Well, eventually they found out that the Sigi was a reenactment of a star in the heavens, a star that can't be seen without a telescope. The Dogon star, the dark star, Sirius B. The Dogon people knew the movement and knew everything about this star. Back in the 1700s and stuff. Before then, they knew about, and the white folks, the French, they said, we can't believe that they knew about this star. They described the star. They described how the star had crushed it imploded, and it crushed itself. It fell in on itself. These primitive people, had knew about this before the Europeans knew about it. And so the European scholars, the art scholar was saying, it was on this show called In Search Of. They said, I gotta say that it just had to be coincidence. And what I'm saying, a black person couldn't know something like this. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a mindset of black people can do nothing. Like Barnum was talking about the buildings and stuff, about the skyscrapers and all that. Barnum had a great point on that. And I was thinking about that, man, that was sharp right there. Okay. But and we hear this kind of stuff and we say the same, it's embedded in our mind that we can't possibly know about nothing like this. We don't know about no stars. No, this is stuff that white people know about. They study the stars. They got observatories, and that we don't know nothing about this. That anti-blackness against ourselves, which leads to people doing shit like what this brother talking about. Okay, that's it on that. My question, my thing was to Jacadero, being an East African, being a brother from East Africa. What do you think about the anti-African thing in East Africa? As far as in Ethiopia, Eritrea, where a lot of people, probably not so much now, but a lot of people there in those countries, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, saying that they're not African, that they ain't black. Hey, Emperor Menelik said that he was not black. Emperor Haile Selassie, whom a lot of our Rasta people revere, I don't revere him, but I'm saying Haile Selassie said that he wasn't black. He said that he was his origin from the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just a thing with us here in the diaspora, it's also on the continent. Like I said, some of the Igbo people saying that they black Jews, they Hebrews. We begin to see that among a lot of other people. So I'm saying it's not just a thing that's here. It's everywhere. They having debates all the time. Somalis, I'm not black. I'm Middle Eastern. I'm Arabic. They're talking about their Arabic origins rather than their African origins. like you see it in Ethiopia among a significant number of the people. You seen it like with Emperor Haile Selassie, who talked about his Semitic origins. You know, in Emperor Menelik, when they was finna fight the war with Italy, it was a brother from Haiti named Benito Sylvain, who was the ambassador from Haiti, who went to Ethiopia. Haiti was the only country that supported Ethiopia. A black nation supported Ethiopia. And he went there and he was talking about Pan-Africanism and black unity, and Emperor Menelik told him, he said, you know, hey, I understand what you're saying, but he told him, he said, but I'm not black. I'll leave it right there. That's the question I want to ask Jacadero.
Appreciate the question, man. I don't know where to start, man. As far as, you know, we call them in inner East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, Tanzania, we call them the Horners. The Horners, they just have their own thing going on. I don't know if I can even comment, just because I don't have many friends from Ethiopia or Somalia, but I did grow up in the masjid with them. And I never got the vibe or the gist from Ethiopian and Somalian Muslim brothers that they denied their blackness. They definitely wouldn't deny their Africanness. You know, if a brother did tell me to my face, like, hey, I'm not black, it could be just a thing of, you know, in Africa, majority of these countries are predominantly black. So it's like, you know, I think there's a phrase that says, like, it goes without saying. So you wouldn't need to say that. You wouldn't need to proclaim that. Also, the issue is that a lot of these countries are colonized. And I want to say that because it deals with this, is that, you know, it's not uncommon now, at least in Kenya, to go to funerals, and there's some people that are wearing black to the funerals. I just want you to understand this. You know, I actually see more African communities wearing white to the funerals in West Africa than I do in East Africa. In East Africa, like there was a recent funeral in the South Sudanese community, and somebody's mom had died, and the sisters of that family, they had to put out a Facebook message saying, hey, we're encouraging everybody to wear white to my mom's funeral. And then they had some other explanation on it. But I'm saying that to say that it goes with, one, again, you know, you're coming from a country where it's majority black, so you don't need to necessarily proclaim that you're black because you look like everybody else. And then two, you're colonized. I mean, again, people, it might be a thing of like religion. Maybe religion has to deal with it, especially in Christianity. I know that in African households, it's not uncommon to find a white Christ. You know, earlier we talked about Garvey, you know, and there was discourse in the chat saying that at least he believed that Christ, or that any God that you believe in, you know, should be a black skin deity. But nonetheless, it's like, you know, and I can at least contest to East African homes. You know, you walk into a household and you'll find a Christ that's not black. It's about as white as mayonnaise. So maybe that has to deal with it. But I will say that I do see, Anthony, I do see that there are these memes, these video clips. I also want to say that, you know, social media, any platform, it pushes what's already gaining traction. And so people are encouraged and influenced and motivated to say the most outlandish things. You know, hey, I'm Somali, but I don't consider myself black. That person would probably be somebody that before social media, they'd be labeled as a crazy person. You know, you would almost disregard them. You know, you and your parents would be walking to the local market, and, you know, your mom and dad would be like, okay, hey, let's hurry up and cross the street. Let's hurry up and get out of the area, because like clearly they have crazy people here that are spouting and doing crazy things that I don't want my child to be influenced of. Now with social media, there's no regulation. So people are not they're not there's no punishment for people to say the most outlandish shit. And then another thing is that they're encouraged. Like look at streamers, right? Like the Gen Z streamers of today and even possibly tomorrow. Wasn't like some French guy, white guy, wasn't he killed because he was on like a 40-day stream, right? Where his I don't know if you want to call him his friends, maybe we can call them his enemies now, but he was killed because of like the constant abuse of the physical abuse of his companions, and just for views. I think that people are just saying stuff because they're like, yeah, I want to go viral. I want to get this money. I want to, whatever it is. I want to be on the next Streamer University. And so I think we also need to take that into consideration. But I will say, Anthony, that there is still a lot of us, though, that don't get highlighted, that say like, hey, yo, cut that shit out. We're black. Just some examples for you. You know, South Sudan, like their country's flag, Kenya's flag, Uganda's flag, Zambia's flag, Malawi's flag. They all have black in the flag. And if you like, just look it up, just a super simple Google search. Not for you, Anthony. I'm sure you know these things, but if anybody that's listening on the live and the recorded, you come to find out that that's intentional. And you know, every color on each flag means something. The color black represents the people of that country. So if those individuals want to say that, that's fine. You know, again, I don't see the color black on Ethiopia or Somalia's flag, but on Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Zambia, Malawi, we have black in our flag. And there's a reason for that. We are a black people.
So our panelist who was here, the new panelist, seems to have fallen off. If you can hear me, I'll give you a minute or two to come back on. This will be the last topic for tonight as we're approaching 11. I really want to hear what this new panelist had to say. There they go. Brother Bakari, how are you this week?
What's going on, my man?
Good,
Thanks for
good.
letting me chime in. Peace
Yes,
to
sir.
the
Thank
rest
you.
of the panel and to the chat. I'm gonna be honest, man. I've had technical difficulties all day, man. Oh man, since 7, I set up all day. Well, trying to watch the game, Southern versus North Carolina Central. In 2 minutes before the game come on, 30 minutes before you start, my internet and everything went out. So I've been in and out. So I heard you say something about the name of the movie I was talking about. It's called The Madness. Can y'all hear me? Am I still there?
Yeah, we could able,
Yeah, you're
Kyle.
good.
We could able.
Okay, yeah, it's called The Madness. I employ every black person to watch that. It's not based on a true story, but it is based on a true story. You have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about. And I would love for somebody to watch it and say, you know what, man, let's do a reaction to this because this is something. It showed a lot. I remember I did a live call, white people organization versus our unorganized approach. And really, when you watch that, that's really what you will see how organized these people are. They're millionaires and billionaires, how organized they are with their poor white people and how they really just work together. But and the name of it is The Madness. It's an 8-part series. But now sound like I heard somebody talking about being an engine. That's something I heard. I used to hear people say that when I was little. I ain't never heard nobody just say that engine. As the Clampers would say, an engine. They would always say, we was told we got Indian in our blood. That's why our hair look a certain way. They never just said they were Indian, but they said they got some Indian in their blood. But most of our people knew where they're from. But this is very dangerous, this YouTube stuff, because I'm telling you, it has bled off in the streets. I know people, a lot of people, I hear blacks still thinking it's just YouTube. I tell them to come to Atlanta. They come to Africans to tell you that you're an Indian or that you're indigenous, because they don't like to say they're Native American. Now they're the indigenous. So it's they're out here and it's crazy. And me, for I've gotten like tired of them. They go to talking to me. I was just like, whatever, dude. My ancestors come from Africa. I want to do. Like I said, so you're not indigenous? I'm like, no, dude, my ancestors come from Africa. You not indigenous? I say, yeah, my ancestors would have been indigenous to the continent of Africa. Your ancestors not indigenous to this land either. That's something that's just made up, but it's a lot of, and this guy that was having this conversation, he's like 75, 76. Man, you're not indigenous to this land? No, no, and you're not either. They are out here, and it's crazy. But wanna call them his indigenous brothers. They're no brothers of man, but they're not the ones who is people out here that's spreading this. But the thing is, that goes to show how it doesn't make a difference how many people talk about how great it is to be African. That goes to show how black people really is looking to be adjacent to anything without accepting who they are. Because there's a lot of people been on here showing African greatness on social media and all that. And these same amount of people that's running talking about their Aboriginal, Indigenous, Niji, whatever the hell they call themselves, they wouldn't run in to say they're African. But as soon as somebody can make up a story, they say Harriet Tubman didn't exist, Nat Turner didn't exist, nothing existed, right? Oh, they can run to that and they believe that, and black people were the first people everywhere. All black people don't come from. They believe that. It's because they don't want to be African. They don't want to be African, and that's their problem. I'm done trying to convince anybody about a whole lot of stuff. So, and what I heard, question that Anthony was talking. You know what? When I was telling you about the Charlotte, North Carolina, right, Coco? One thing, one of my best friends is she's Eritrean, and I think it's just based on the person to say if they're black or not, because she most definitely says she's black. I've actually put a store. I guess I'll do it again. A video of a store on my channel talking about support black business, and they're Ethiopian. Matter of fact, most people think a lot of people think they're West African, especially daughter. But they're Ethiopian, and they most definitely say they're black. My Ethiopian people who own chevrons, they say they're black. I think it's just the person. But she was telling me the problem with, she was telling my lady, and I'm ear hustling, so I was there. The problem with Ethiopia and Eritrea, uh, she said Eritrea, the way she got it, the way the history is passed, Eritrea, since Ethiopia was never conquered, allegedly, Eritrea was conquered by Italy and gifted to Ethiopia. Italians told them that they could be over Eritrea, and that's what caused the rift between the Ethiopians and Eritreans. That's what I was told by someone from Eritrea. Like I said, we was out there over the weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. But back to the one dude thing. I guess it was because, like I said, I couldn't really hear it, so I guess it was about somebody calling themselves something, a black guy calling themselves something other than African. Get out here, and they everywhere,
No, the
and I
black
hear
guy,
the blacks
the black
and the
guy,
black.
the black guy saying Shaka Zulu is an American Indian. Oh, I'm sorry, was an American Indian.
Oh, that you know what? That's that Phil Valentine, but I ain't never heard him say that. What he said, Mansa Musa was Montezuma. That's that's what Phil Valentine said. So you have these people out here teaching that stuff. They're the same people. You have people that's teaching stuff like that, and people will listen. Mansa Musa It's Montezuma. They really was, and I'm gonna write the book to prove it. I got all the evidence right here. And then you had people going around saying, well, Mansa Musa and Montezuma is the same is the same person. So
Bakari,
look, yeah,
Bakari, Bakari.
yeah.
When you say the madness, right? You talk about
Uh,
the madness of this black dude called Coleman Domingo. This black dude.
I don't know his name, but yeah.
Yo, hey, Bakari, if you have your phone with you, look up who this man married to, bro. I can't watch that. I can't watch that. Hey, I feel the same way. Like why I can't watch
I'm
Tyler Perry. I can't watch him, brethren. I can't watch him, brother.
I'm going to tell you something. I don't know who he's married to. In the show
Look who his
ain't
hus-
just
look who his husband is. Look who his husband is.
in the show ain't just about. Well, I'm gonna tell you. Somebody told me that yesterday. In the show ain't just about. In the show ain't and it ain't just about him. But you don't have to watch it. It's that's okay. I'm just saying. I explained why I said you should watch it. So if you know something else similar to that you should watch, maybe you should watch it. But that's the only one that I've seen, and I like action and I like stuff like that. But I don't know what he's married
Bakari,
to. Yes.
Bakari, I have to correct myself. I did watch The Madness. When you described it, I thought it was a documentary he was talking about, but it's like an action show. And Buana's right, Coleman Domingo or whatever his name, Dominguez. He's the lead of it. It's a good show though. But of course, that he's a black man who's gay, and I think he's gay with a white dude and stuff like that. So that's what Buana's getting at. But that show was
Yeah.
actually a good show. In truth, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bakari.
Oh yeah. That was saying. Somebody told me that. Somebody told me that yesterday when I was telling them about it. I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't keep up with these people's lives like that. And I'm just, you know. Well, I'm gonna say it like this. Buwana, you was on here hyping up Trump during the campaign, and you see everything that he did, and so you shouldn't have a problem with watching and hyping up anything, bro.
There we go. There we go. There we go. You go have a wonderful night. Go have a wonderful night, Mario.
I'm just saying. But what am I lying?
First of all, I completely disavow myself with Trump and his fanatics. I don't know why you keep on going over that. I already didn't say I don't
Because
agree
it's
with Trump
fun.
is doing. No, I don't agree with Trump is doing, but because Trump is a pedophile. This guy is with a well. I ain't even gonna go there. I ain't gonna go there. I just said that I can't authorize. I can't watch. A good documentary to watch is called "Kill the Brutes" by Raul some Peck. That's his
What is
name.
what is what is it called?
Exterminate the Brutes. That's a good documentary. Exterminate the Brutes.
That's a really
Wonderful
good one.
documentary.
I've seen that's really good.
Yeah, that's a good documentary. I can't authorize that. If I don't watch Tyler Perry, I can't watch this, brother. I can't do it, brother Makari. I can't do it, bro.
Hey,
Hey,
Coach.
look, I'm gonna say again, man. Like I said, I explained why I said you should, why I think folks should, and really don't have to. But one thing for sure, when you see that, when you watch that movie, you'll see like, damn, these people are extremely organized, and you see what going on in that movie, you see going on in real life. They are organized, and black people running around like a chicken with their head cut off. We got black people, i.e., Bawana, who was caping for the Klan and the neo Nazis. I couldn't help myself, Bawana. I love you though. We got black people that were caping for them.
I love you too, big bro. I love you, but go ahead.
I
Have your
couldn't
fun.
help.
Have your fun.
No, I'm just clowning you. Come on, man. I'm having fun. Don't get upset. But
I
but
know.
in
I
all
know.
but in all honesty, we did. We had black people, and we have black people that really still is caping for them, the Klan and the neo-Nazis. We had black people that didn't know what side they was on during that damn. Kim didn't know what side they was on. And you got some that still don't know what side they on. So when I talk about that, how unorganized, we have an unorganized approach, and these people organized, there's reasons that we are behind. There's reasons. See, because and I'm not gay. I don't care about no gay folks. I ain't around gay folks, right? Ain't around them. But I think the folks who y'all call supreme. Now most of them are probably that way, but I think they don't learn how to use them folks to benefit them too. I'm just saying. I ain't saying that's what you have to do, but I'm just saying. If you want to win, you got to be able to use every tool. Every tool you can use if you want to win. That's a fact. Some tools we do have to get rid of. But I didn't know the guy was gay. Like I didn't even know his name. I just seen him in a couple shows. The Walking Dead, because I like stuff like that. The zombie apocalypse, because I believe we living in a zombie apocalypse now.
He was good in the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I watched that, and I watched that. See, if you and the other guy had told me, you know, he's gay, I wouldn't have known because I don't keep up with their life. And I'm just being honest. I wouldn't have ever known.
Yeah, what they do is, especially with black actors and actresses, when they come to find out that they're gay, and they come to find out that the people really kind of mess with them because, like you said, Coleman Dominguez, he carries that Fear of the Walking Dead series, by the way. Him and the British fella Lenny, I can't remember Lenny's name, but anyway, they tend to push that sexuality thing out in front. So Coleman Dominguez, the same black guy we're talking about, he was the star of like the Color Purple musical. I think he was Mr. And they really pushed that queer thing with the Color Purple musical thing that they did. They really pushed that queer stuff. So even my point in saying all that is to say, even though I don't care about what the dude is doing, they push that. If you pay half of attention, they push that stuff, and you end up having to know what's going on with these people. Good conversation by everyone, though. Exterminate the Brutes. You guys check that out, and check out the show that Bakari was just talking about as well. Coleman Dominguez, he stars in it. Man, we've reached that part of the show where it's time to do our weekly shout outs, man. Let's shout out something positive we saw in the black world. By the way, someone asked earlier in the chat if we were going to discuss the debate between the black woman and the 20 black conservatives. Can't think of Amanda Seals. I saw Kofi and them talking about it the other night. So shout out to Kofi and his boys at the To Be Fair show. They talked about it, but no one put up a prompt for it this week, as far as I saw, and so we didn't discuss it. Maybe we might talk about it next week, because I haven't even seen the whole thing myself. With that said, man, what positive things have you guys seen during your week in the black world? Let me start with Brother Bakari. What's your shout out this week, Bakari?
Hey man, let's go. I'm in the store. Let me pay for this. Their radio loud.
All right, do your thing. Anthony, what would you like to shout out this week?
Oh man, I just want to shout out us, man. You know, shout out the show, man. It was a lot of things that happened, man, but I basically want to shout out us for coming back and getting together and discussing these topics, man. You know, because it's very important. You know, sometimes, you had to admit when you're wrong, man. Like last week when we was talking, man, and I think one of the problems we was talking about I think about some of the FDA bull crap, and I was just like, basically, hey man, I don't even care about that, man. I don't pay it no attention. But then when I got to listen to some of the brothers talk and everything, and I didn't say it on the show, but I guess my pride and arrogance. But I thought about it again. I said, you know what, man, y'all brothers was right. We do need to call out that bullshit. We do. We can't just let it ride. Like I said, every time I hear it, it frustrates me when I hear about this FDA shit and all this old bullshit. But yeah, y'all right, man. So my shout out is for the prompt for bringing me back back into reality and let me know that, yeah, you need to call out the bullshit. And I just want to say just one thing real quick about what y'all was just talking about. One day we need to do a pump on these miseducators, man. Like Brother Bakari was talking about the Phil Valentine, you know, and about Mansa Musa being Moctezuma. You know, and when you think about it, it's just so stupid, you know, and it's even more stupid for us who believe in this shit, who will follow these misleaders, these miseducators, who I don't know where they get their education from, you know, like a Phil Valentine. Because, I mean, Mansa Musa lived in the 1300s, Moctezuma lived in the 1500s. You know what I'm saying? They lived 200 years apart, how they the same person. You know, but we'll hear stuff like that, and we'll go for it, man. We'll fall for it just because Phil Valentine said it, or Dr. James Small said it. You know, some of these guys are supposed to be luminaries and teachers and everything. So I think we need to do a show one day about these miseducators. But like I said, shout out to the panel for bringing me back, for giving me a reality check and saying, no, bro, you need to check this shit. You can't let this shit ride. So shout out to the Shoot the Breeze panel, man.
Yeah, shout out to you, Anthony, and shout out to the fact that you realize that, yeah, we gotta buck some of this talk, you know. By the way, earlier when Anthony had spoken during the show, he mentioned those mounds. You know, that Phil Valentine, Dane Calloway thing about Montezuma is Mansa Musa. That came from Hidden Colors. That came from Tariq Nasheed and them. And in one of those Hidden Colors films, they talked about the mounds that Anthony mentioned earlier. They talked about those mounds and you know, claiming they were underground pyramids and all that kind of stuff too. So shout out to Tariq Nasheed once again. All that stuff you have Phil Advisor talking about, that dumb stuff, that comes from that Hidden Color stuff. But I digress. Black Steel, shout out this week.
I want to shout out first of all, it's Black August, so remembering, you know, commemorate some of our events and our resistance to our oppression. August 21st, 1831, the beginning of the Nat Turner Rebellion. That was 194 years ago, but I remember like it was yesterday. Haitian Revolution started August 20, 1821. Remember our revolutionary ancestor, George Jackson. And that's really it. But Black August is packed, man. I think, you know, we talk about Black History Month, but Black people did a lot of resistance historically in August. I think sometimes we forget that. And also remembering the victims of Hurricane Katrina is about August 29th makes 20 years. So it's 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. And remember those people who were lost in the storm. And that's really it. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Brother Bakari is back. Brother Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
I want to shout out you, man. Shout out everybody on the panel. That you know, and shout out to all the young brothers and sisters that gone back, that started school. You know, I know things look tight right now for everybody, but I'm hoping one day that we can organize something and start putting some money in the pot so we can help some of our young brothers and sisters who's off away in college or in trade school or anything. Maybe we could help them with a book or some toiletries or something, but we have to start looking out so they know that we care. So when they go and they make their money, they don't have to leave the community for good. I want to shout out everybody who said Donald Trump being president gonna bring us together. I'm shouting y'all out because I just know y'all about to take y'all uniting ass to DC and get things in order so y'all can unite and do something with the weak ass National Guard. That's why I'm shouting y'all out, because it's gonna bring y'all together. On that, man, I yield in mic.
I will vote for Donald Trump. With that said, man, let me hear from Jack Adele. Jack Adele, what say you? What do you like to shout out this week?
Man, This Donald Trump thing, man. Every time he makes you laugh. That's a hey, by the way, that's a bop, man. That thing slap. I will vote for Donald Trump.
Come on, man. That thing hit.
It slaps. Shout out to all the women that participate as viewers, and then shout out to Cheryl. Cheryl, you have such an awesome insight, such an awesome voice. If you're ever in Omaha, this is part of the second shout out. Man, go ahead and reach on out to us at the Empowerment Network. That's Empower.
She's never gonna be in Omaha. She's never gonna.
Let me cook. Shout out to the Empowerment Network. That's empoweromaha.com. To touch on what Brother Bakari had said, it's back to school time. Empowerment Network is a direct contractor with the Step Up program. What that is basically we connect all the kids specifically in North Omaha, the historic Black neighborhood in Omaha, with mentors, both men and women, and we do a damn good job. We got the data. 6% of the mentees are Black immigrant kids from Africa and the Caribbean, specifically Africa. We have the largest, again, Omaha, Nebraska is home to the largest South Sudanese diaspora in the United States. So it's connecting, it's building bridges, and of course doing our part. Last but not least, this is like Black Steel had said, Black August, North Omaha. So every 2 years, North Omaha throws Native Omaha Days as a celebration of the historic North Omaha neighborhood. And this past August, man, my memory doesn't serve me correct, but this month we celebrated the week-long celebration of Native Omaha Days, equipped with a parade, festival, and vendors. I was out on the scene collecting data on behalf of the Empowerment Network. And one of the things that was really touching that I got told, Cheryl, America's armpit. You'd be surprised about Omaha. Cheryl, come over here. Come on. You'd be surprised. We got, matter of fact, there's a Jamaican restaurant. It's probably one of the most visited Black restaurants here in Omaha. How about this? A rum punch and a jerk chicken on me, Cheryl. You come over, look me up, you know. But
that's a married woman, bro. Tighten up.
And one of the things that was really touching from one of the elders that attended Native Omaha Days, he said he saw that he was very surprised to see that no youth were on their phones when they were attending Native Omaha Days. So once again, that's the Empowerment Network that you see on the screen. That's www.empoweromaha.com.
Hey, let me say something right quick. And I want to give a shout out to Omaha, Nebraska. Jackadero and Terrence Crawford about to whoop Canelo. Hey, the whole Black world need to be riding with Omaha, Nebraska and Terrence Bud Crawford in September.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Woo! Let's go.
So it's my time. So
Good stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me start it like this. So shout out first. Let me say this. Shout out to my African brothers in America. I appreciate you all, brothers, for coming on this live and spending time with our Caribbean brothers and African brothers. I appreciate the dialogue and the diversity. I think sometimes we look at the division, but we don't necessarily look at us coming together, the collectivity. And this is a long-standing show, really and truly. And we still find ourselves coming together on this particular live and have discussions, serious discussions from time to time, discussions that should be vetted. I have found sometimes, because Anthony said you got to do the work, and he is absolutely right. But sometimes when you go on different channels, some people are so closed, they don't want to hear from people from different spaces and places. So the conversation becomes very difficult, and you get into the name callings and the back and forth. And I appreciate the fact that the brothers come on and give us an ear and a hearing, and so we could have an exchange of different kinds of ideas. So shout out to you all, brothers. The second thing I want to say is, because Brother Bakari been poking this bear all night, and I don't want to get into the political discussion, because he always poking the bear at me, saying the Black people get together. I would say this, Brother Bakari. Since Trump has come to power, he has banned many African countries or Africans coming to the Americas, in particular North America. And he has banned many Caribbean countries and coming to North America. What has happened from that experience is you seeing a whole lot of discussions and and ideas of trade. In fact, Jamaica, I think Nigeria is supposed to be given Jamaica an infusion of money, a whole lot of money into Jamaica, whole lot of money into Jamaica. Now, these things that's happening right now, I believe, is because of the aggression of North America saying we don't want no black people coming into our country. Seeing a lot of that happening right now, in particular with the Caribbean and African countries. A lot of that. So black people are coming together, but not in the way that we thought it would happen inside the United States of America. That's what I want. That's the one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is shout out to Assimi Goita in Mali for destroying the Islamicists who are trying to destroy his country, in particular from northern Nigeria. He was just able to dispatch with a terrorist inside the borders of his country. So shout out for him and capturing one of the agents, one of the French agents, who was trying to destabilize his country and pretending to be what he was not. Shout out for capturing him and taking him to task for what he was doing. They are fighting a battle for independence right now against France. And I think that the AES countries are doing a yeoman's job in doing that. So shout out to those brothers in doing that in the AES states. So that's where my shots will go today in terms of the positive things that I wanted to say.
Appreciate that, Buana.
Thank you, Buana.
We can fight about it tomorrow.
We not gonna fight, man. I'm just having fun with you, Buana. I ain't fighting with you. But it is fun messing with you.
I want to shout out these two food reviewers who were about to review some food at a restaurant when this happened.
Boom.
Check the system in the back here. Yeah, that was a close call, man. Shout out to them for surviving that bullshit this week, man. As always, by the way, that was a car that ran through the window where they were sitting, so they barely survived that one. Jackadero saying damn in the chat. Shout out to all of you, man. You guys make it worthwhile showing up every week. Having these conversations is good. I think it's good to enrich your soul sometimes and your ideologies. To have wholesome conversations. There's so much other nonsense we could have been doing with the time, but we chose to come here and spend 3 hours and have this conversation. Hopefully, you guys will return next week and have the conversation or have similar conversations with the rest of us again. Until then, you guys be good. Take care of yourself. Be black, as Brother Bakari would say. Buy black, support black. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, We hope you pass along our web address, bitamedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Beta Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Beta Medicine Show, Twitter, Beta Meds, Tumblr, Beta Meds, Instagram, Beta Medicine.